matters arising, and what the prospects are moving forward. We'll also turn our attention to the upcoming referendum on the participation of political parties in local government election processes. So, question is, what is it going to be come referendum day 17 December 2019? Is it going to be a win for the yes campaign or a win for the no campaign? Now again, whether yes or no, it appears that the period leading to our first nationwide referendum since 1992 is caught up in some level of confusion. Now, a seeming lack of adequate public education is making people wonder exactly what this whole referendum is about and what their vote should be, whether a yes or a no. Now, there are those who appear to have misunderstood the objective of the referendum to be one to determine the question of whether MMDCEs should be elected. On the other hand, there are those who understand that the referendum is not to determine whether MMDCEs should be elected, but to determine whether political parties should be allowed to sponsor candidates contesting local government positions. Now, for this group of persons, and I must say this is a group that we all ought to belong to if indeed the understanding or sensitization had been far-reaching. But of course, there are those challenges that we'll be dealing with. Now, so for this last group, or the latter group of people who understand exactly what the objective of the referendum is, the issue confronting them or confronting us is whether or not to have the dynamics of central government elections replicated at the local level. The debate, obviously, as you know, is raging and continues to rage. So on the show this morning, we shall be discussing the upcoming nationwide referendum, the level of publicity around it, the argument for and against the lawful involvement of political parties in local government elections, and also which position would ultimately be in the interest of Ghana to have political parties lawfully participate. And I use the word lawfully because as it is, there's consensus that they are indeed participating contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. So question is, do we make it legal now or lawful? That is a big issue, and we'll be looking at that in the course of the program. So these are the two topics we've outlined for conversation this morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will start off with a look at the 2020 budget and matters arising. This is the key point. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back.
This week on Enzibara, I'm catch your plan that you study. When you look for sprinters, go to Barbie Street to a friend Odom Street. For Google Map and for to know what I got some wood and place I should put a field. Hi, what from HFC? I am hosted food court. Now, some night there, one who can look for the whole got to go never way field. And Kakana one in town. Hey, our London dollar for that. But what I was super money. This week, when you look for HFC, now you go out to the way you are to bring kind of sense. Enzibara! Hey, Sissy!
Inziban shows this and every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on TV3. Brought to you by
Enapa Macro.
The race to stardom on Ghana's biggest reality show has taken off. Oh yeah!
Follow four accomplished music legends, Bessa Simons, Apietus, Adam, and Adina as they mentor their talents to stardom.
Don't miss the exciting journey as we discover a new music star to win a 2-bedroom house and the bragging rights of being the winner of TV3 Mentor Reloaded.
Get ready for a new music star. Make a date this and every Sunday at 8 p.m.
TV3 Mentor Reloaded.
4 celebrated mentors, just one winner. Mentor takes you higher.
Brought to you by Heaven Black Mosquito Coil and Insecticide Spray, and Napamakrel, Feco Spray Starch, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil, Cocoa Dairy Free Coconut Milk, Roma Insecticide Spray and Coil, Shine Tomato Paste, Vital Mineral Water.
From across our great nation, Frytol is searching to unearth talents. Watch as our contestants cook with Frytol's amazing range of products. Cooking skills at its best. The prize, a life-changing business investment of 100,000 Ghana cedis, courtesy of Frytol Wilma Africa. Who will be the first ever Frytol Enriching Lives Cooking Champion? November 16th on TV3, watch the biggest reality cooking show at 6 p.m. every Saturday. Brought to you by Frytol. Frytol Enriching Lives, unearthing talent, fulfilling dreams.
This Saturday on Today's Woman.
You know, you encourage women a lot. Yes, you always uplift women. You always talk about the worth of a woman. Right. What would you say is the influence of a woman?
You know, women are amazing creatures, and we have great influence. A woman has influence over her husband, her father, her brother, her son. Women are very influential, and you know, women by our nature are nurturers. We are carers, we are helpers, we are destiny carriers. You take the seed, you bring forth a child. Right. We have that inner, you know, love and emotional strength to nurture. So women are very influential.
Watch Today's Woman every Saturday at 11 a.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by GTP.
Ya Sanitary Pad from Lexta Ghana Limited.
Takoradi was great.
I am so happy. I'm grateful to TV3 for giving me this opportunity to showcase what I do.
Kumasi was awesome.
This one is extraordinary because it's really fun.
And now, the most amazing and profitable experience.
The TV3 SME and Funding Summit Accra edition is here again. Date Thursday, 5th December 2019 to Sunday, 8th December 2019. Venue Junction Mall, Nungwa, Accra.
4 days of massive sales, profit, and discount on all products and services on offer.
Come by Ghana to grow Ghana. Benefits to your business.
Free consultancy and advice on funding opportunities and how to expand your business.
Free interviews on TV3, 3FM, and Onyo FM.
Free health screening.
Free eye screening.
Free makeup and so many giveaways and surprises.
Register now. Please call 0241 272 606 or 0242 334 554 or 0243 718 245. The TV3 SME and Funding Summit 2019.
Expand your network, grow your business.
A healthy nation, they say, is a wealthy nation. But healthcare isn't just about connecting a doctor and a patient. It's about connecting society. It's about reaching out beyond the nurses, doctors, and hospitals. And about bringing together every person from the length and breadth of the country to understand the issues affecting our physical, mental, and social being. As a nation, we have come a long way in healthcare delivery, but we also have a long way to go. For many people, access to medical information and treatment is a challenge, and that is why the award-winning program, Vodafone Healthline, is back. Join our team of medical experts to uncover, diagnose, and treat medical conditions affecting us. Every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on TV3.
The future is exciting. Ready?
I do not want to see you again.
I'm even tired of you. What makes and makes your ideal home? Is it sex, children, cheating issues?
Even if you marry, I'll continue dating you.
That's a lie.
Financial issues or your deadly secrets?
Etonam, can you imagine my husband to be gonna have an erection?
How? Come on, guys. It's time to face that challenging issue threatening your family. You only need to be bold. Join me, Etonam Say, and my panel on Ideal Home every Saturday from 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. for the peculiar solutions to your family's challenges on 3FM 92.7. And we'll also share with you time-tested tips for effective parenting. Ideal Home on 3FM 92.7, making families thrive.
Hello Africa, I'm here to tell you about iFactory's Making of a Mogul, a TV show profiling Africa's most intriguing entrepreneurs around the globe.
I want this to be a brand that turns over business.
That man who made, 20 million in 24 hours?
I go on location with these driven entrepreneurs to find out what makes them tick and tell their story in their own words.
It's a challenge, but I think I rise to the occasion.
There's something that drives me to take African culture and showcase it.
Even at church, people order your stuff.
Let's stop speaking about our potential.
Actually, I'm just getting started.
I am Anita Erskine, representing the best of Africa.
iFactory's Making of the Mogul shows every Saturday at 4 p.m. only on TV3.
It's new. It's first in Ghana and on your TV. The Law Challenge takes your TV experience to a new and exciting paradigm. Watch educative content as 10 law faculties exhibit their legal prowess for the bragging rights as winners of the Maiden Law Challenge. Brace yourselves. Nemo that. Join us on TV3. Case again.
The Law Challenge every Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3.
Welcome back. So this is the Key Points. We're live on TV3. We're also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we'll be looking at the subject of the 2020 budget statement and economic policy, which was presented by the Minister for Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, this Thursday. I will be introducing the panelists very soon. But before that, let's take some snippets of his presentation in Parliament.
Government will set up a national digital strategy team under the overall oversight of the presidency, who will bring together local technology firms and experts and with the professional and financial support from the Ministry of Communication, Ministry of Finance, and the Ghana Investment Promotion Center to elevate the profile and reach of our digitalization strategy across the region to unlock the unexplored economic value of the sector. Mr. Speaker, entrepreneurship. Government will accelerate entrepreneurship and MSC growth to support economic growth and dynamism. Mr. Speaker, entrepreneurship support programs such as MBSSI and NIIP. In addition, government will facilitate linkages between domestic entrepreneurs and FDI firms to join global value chains. Mr. Speaker, recent studies conducted by the World Bank Group indicates that 200 million people worldwide, disproportionately the youth, are unemployed and looking for jobs. 600 million new jobs are needed globally over the next 15 years to keep employment rates stable, and 1 billion young people will enter the labor market between 2019 and 2030. The creation of jobs and connecting to markets, as well as building capabilities and connecting workers to jobs, are policy drivers for our TVET program. Mr. Speaker, government will over the medium term establish 32 new state-of-the-art TVET institutions across the country to ensure that our youth are ready for the job market. In 2018, this August House therefore approved the following tax incentives to the private sector business promoters: 5 years corporate tax holiday for 1 year on companies, exemption from import duties, taxes and levies on equipment, machinery and parts, exemption from payment of duties and levies on raw materials. Mr. Speaker, beyond 1D1F, the Strategic Outdoor Industries Initiative It's one of the key components of our industrial transformation plan to diversify our economy. The key strategic industries under the initiative are petrochemical, aluminium and bauxite, iron and steel, vehicle assembly, automotive industry, garment and textiles, pharmaceutical, vegetable oils and fats, industrial starch from cassava, industrial chemical based on industrial salt, machinery and equipment manufacturing. Mr. Speaker, the introduction of mobile money payments and interoperability between different telcos, as well as between mobile wallets and bank accounts, has been implemented. This is a major step to financial inclusion and movement towards cashless payment for government services from next year. The interoperability between mobile wallets and bank accounts that we have implemented in Ghana is the first of its kind in Africa and practically provides all 34.5 million mobile money account holders a branchless bank account.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta touted the achievement of the Akufo-Addo-led government 3 years in office, asserting that it has been able to deliver on its flagship programs. Assessing the 2019 fiscal year, the minister described the year as a very good one for Ghana. But Professor of Economics at the Institute for Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Korte, noted the reduction of the benchmark values and the increase in tax exemptions in 2019 have proven to be counterproductive.
The 2018-2019 fiscal space has not been as good as one would have expected. I must say that if you look at the deficit, it's still within 5%, so that is acceptable. But a look at the revenue numbers shows that we are having a revenue shortfall. As of June, we have a shortfall of about 5 billion cedis.
Yes.
In terms of expenditure, I mean, if your revenue, you don't meet your revenue targets, certainly you have to cut your quota according to your size, as one may put it. So expenditures were also cut, and unfortunately, it is capital expenditure that suffers.
True.
If you look at the numbers again, you see 44% variation or deviation from capital expenditure target, and that is very significant.
The fiscal deficit declined from 6.5% of GDP in 2016 to 4.5% at the end of the third quarter of 2019.
Government says the cleanup of the entire financial sector will cost the nation's taxpayer some estimated 30 billion cedis. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta at the presentation of the 2020 budget statement and economic policy in Parliament today said an amount of 13 billion cedis has so far been spent on the banking sector cleanup alone. The minister said figures so far suggest a more robust and resilient banking sector after the revocation of licenses of some insolvent banks and a recapitalization of the industry. Mr. Ofori-Atta blamed the erstwhile NDC administration of failing to deal decisively with the challenges that confronted the banking sector. But former Deputy Finance Minister Kessel Atuforsin said the Finance Minister was wrong.
This is a Finance Minister that often comes to this Honorable House, present a budget statement in the form of telling story and peddling propaganda and falsehood. It is wrong for a minister responsible for finance to come to this August House and ignore what his predecessors did. The very law that they are using to close down people's investment, take down people's assets, make rendering people unemployment were laws that we initiated. What they did was, instead of them applying that law in a positive manner, they are using the law in a negative way to destroy lives and livelihood.
Mr. Forson also criticized government's handling of the financial sector crisis.
If I have 30 billion Ghana cedis, I could as well bail out some of this bank, re-inject governance, save jobs, and get business.
But that's not fair. Some of the banks were bailed out.
They were doing well. How many of them were bailed out?
UMB.
How many of them? Have they got the money? They have not gotten it. So it doesn't work. And even that, the question of some of the banks being bailed out, what was the processes of selecting? They selected those that are close to the administration and killed those that they think are perceived that they do not belong to them. What is happening is that some of these business owners that have deposited investment in these banks, you claim that you have given money to. Where's the money? Some of them, they do not have access to this money.
The financial sector cleanup includes a revocation of licenses of 9 universal banks, 347 microfinance companies, of which 155 had already ceased operations, 39 microcredit companies and money lenders, 10 of which had already ceased operations, 15 savings and loans companies, 8 finance houses, and 2 non-bank financial institutions that had already ceased operations were revoked. The Securities and Exchange Commission last week also revoked the licenses of some 53 asset management companies.
Great. So that was a story put together in respect of the 2020 budget as presented by the Finance Minister, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, earlier on in the week. So we'll just get straight into it. The panelists are here. From my extreme left, we have Dr. George Domfe. He's a development economist, and he's with the Center for Social Policy Studies, University of Ghana. He's a senior research fellow at that center. Next to him is Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie. He's a research fellow at IFS. And to my right, we have Dr. John Kweku-Mensah Mauto. He is the Dean of the School of Graduate Studies at the UPSA. And last but not least is Dr. Lord Mensah. He's a senior lecturer at the UGBS, University of Ghana. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Good morning. It's great to have you here. So we're looking at this very important subject of the 2020 budget, and for many reasons it's a very important issue we're looking at. Indeed, the Finance Minister himself laid out those parameters within which he presented the 2020 budget, that it's an election year budget and it's coming, and it's going to be the first time that a government in an election year is going to be tested on how it disciplines itself fiscally under the act that has been passed, which is the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2018. And also it's the first time since 2015 that a budget that is being implemented without the IMF support or under an IMF program. So these really are the three, dimensions or the parameters that the budget of 2020 was presented within, and we're going to be looking at, as much as possible, a number of areas in respect of the budget. And I would want to start with you, Dr. Domfe, here. Listening to the budget, an assessment of the 2018-2019 or 2019 financial year, if you like, and looking at the budget presented for 2020, your general perspective, you could just summarize maybe some 3 highlights you found that you would want us to dwell on.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here again. Yeah, so to do that, let me look at 2018. Mm-hmm. In 2018, so the economy grew by 6.3%, we were told. And looking at the sectors, we were told that agricultural sector and then the manufacturing subsector under the industrial sector, these were the 2, sectors that were not hitherto doing so well, that did very well. And so that particular year's growth wasn't so much driven by the oil as it used to be the case in 2017. And so moving from there to 2019, I was expecting the agricultural sector and then the manufacturing to do well as they did in 2018. But from the look of things, the data that we now have at hand indicates that the agricultural sector is not picking up as it did in 2018 because of cocoa. And then the manufacturing is not likely to grow at 9% as it did. Yeah, but my expectation is that these 2 sectors should do well because that is where the poor are. We are told that over 70% of the poor in the country are either involved with livestock production or crop production. And so if you see agricultural sector doing well, then it means that you are creating wealth to cover the poor who have been excluded for far too long. My other issue had to do with capital expenditure that we've all talked about. 2018, government budgeted over 7 billion on capital expenditure. And they promised us that at least by the end of the year, they were going to construct so many roads, build so many hospitals and schools and all that. But at the end of 2018, we didn't see that. We saw that they only spent 4.7 billion because they had to sacrifice the capital expenditures for other things, and that especially so when they were not getting the needed revenue and they had to cut, expenditure. When they had to do that, they rather sacrifice the expenditure that they had to, incur or spend for the capital side. And so that is an issue. This year, they have promised us that they are going to spend, I'm talking about 2020, they are going to spend 9.3. My only worry is that you promise 7, you spend 4.7, and now you are promising 9.3. Well, I mean, what is an indication that this time around you are going to spend? Maybe before because we are moving into election year, this time they will do that. Otherwise, they have to take very good care at that particular sector. I'm talking about the capital expenditure. Infrastructure-wise, Ghana is highly deficient. And so it's important they look at that. And when we talk about capital expenditure, it's expenditure for tomorrow.
Sure.
I mean, recurrent is what to eat, what to get in order to live comfortable today. Capital expenditure is about tomorrow. I do know that they are doing well when it comes to education, which is also about tomorrow. But then they have to look at the capital expenditure.
Right, very well. Let me turn to Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie here, and also for your initial, reaction to the budget. But maybe just to carry on from where Doc left off, talking about the capex and the spending that is not necessarily satisfactory. I want to bring in the fact about this year, or this budget being an election year, and the need for government to stay within a certain deficit, not to go beyond that. Now, raising the issue about capital expenditure, obviously you're talking about infrastructure and a number of huge, activities that require, some huge capital outlay. Question then is, against the backdrop of the commitment that government has given that we're going to stay within this 5% cap that is statutory now, and looking at the need for infrastructure in an election year, how feasible is that commitment of government?
Okay.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Since 2017, 2018, 2019 budgets, we've looked at revenue generation. There's always a shortfall. Now, when you read these three budgets, you see the reasons given for the shortfall, i.e., taxes. The shortfall is coming from international trade, income and property, tax rate. The same things have been stated in 2017, 18, 19 consistently. Meanwhile, in the same three budgets, the minister says that we want to, improve efficiency in revenue generation, and one will wonder how come that we have not been able to achieve the targets if indeed we improve the revenue efficiency. Now, the other issue is that for the last 3 years, 17, 18, 19, the revenue and grants have grown by just an average of 15%. Now, the projection for the medium term from 2021, 2022, and 2023 is also an average of 12%. But
which is less than...
I'm coming. But only the year 2020, from 19 to 2020, has been projected to 22%.
Okay.
And that is quite, an alarming figure, something that most of us think that we may not be able to achieve. So how do we stay within the fiscal deficit target? One, we should be able to raise enough revenue. Once you have money, you can spend on anything that you want. So let's raise enough revenue. Number two, if we are not able to raise enough revenue, then it is very likely that the budget deficit target of 4.7 will be missed.
Sure.
It's likely that government will raise it to 5%. Very likely, because that difference of 0.3% is going to give government about 1 billion Ghana cedis, which is a huge sum of money. So if you are not able to raise the revenue, and that from all indications, we have not been able to raise revenue. This year, the first half of this year, we've missed the target by 13.6%. So then the next option is to raise the budget deficit. And I'm very sure that it will be raised. But
when it gets to 5, we'll still be within.
But we'll deal with the 5. Maybe they will raise it to 4.9999 and still tell you that
surprising
we are
within
still
the 5,
within the 5.
then yeah.
The next option is to cut expenditure.
Right.
Which is something the previous administration did not do the previous administration, anytime they missed the revenue targets, they still wanted to spend. So whilst revenue, the targets were missed by a negative figure, the expenditure was increased by a positive figure, and therefore ballooned the budget deficit. Now, this administration has insisted that they want to live within. In fact, they even passed a law. They have a Fiscal Responsibility Act, and they are not ready to go beyond the 5%. So the only option, if the first option, revenue, is not generated, the second one, if they can't raise the budget, then they will cut the expenditure, which is something we have seen also consistently from the year 2017, 18, 19. And I'm hopeful that we are going to see the same thing in the year 2020.
Irrespective of the fact that it's an election year and the demands for development and infrastructure and everything will come in.
That's why it's the third option. The first option is to raise revenue. The second option is to raise the budget deficit target from 4.7 to 5.0 and get 4.999 and get that 1 billion difference. And that 1 billion can do so many things for them during the election year. The third option is to cut the some of the expenditure, and obviously what comes to mind first is the capital expenditure. Reasons being that they have maintained their consistency. I like that they have maintained their consistency of ensuring that they implement the flagship programs, and understandably so, because they're politicians. Why not? Because they campaigned, Ghanaians voted for them, so they have a medium-term plan for the 4 years. And right from the word go in the year 2017, they have stated all the flagship programs, and they have been repeated in all the budgets that they are going to make sure that they achieve the targets. So whatever it takes, it will take them to achieve the flagship programs. And most of the flagship programs are recurrent expenditure in nature.
Right.
So they will by all means cut the capital and then maintain focus. I like the way they maintain focus on the flagship programs. And an MP will say, okay, the 1 million one constituency hasn't come. But to a large extent, they've been able to.
Sure, to the extent that we do appreciate that the capital expenditure, I mean, that is for the future, like, Dr. Domford said, and perhaps it's worth in putting money into as against the recurrent, which we're looking at the, if you like, the social intervention, those flagship programs. Question then is, have we, in the past 3 years, realized any, if you like, positive impact from these flagship programs to say that, well, even if we're cutting down on, capital expenditure to allow us do this, it's worth doing.
It's worth doing. It's worth doing. Let me give you. The structure of the economy hasn't changed significantly to create the needed jobs. In fact, the GDP growth rate, about 50% of the GDP growth rate is coming from the extractive sectors. And the extractive sectors are capital intensive in nature. So we have not been able to create the needed jobs. What people are looking for are the needed jobs. And the 1 district, 1 factory, 2, we haven't even reached half. So what then do? You need the social intervention programs to relieve Ghanaians of the burden that it will be on them. Because now you haven't created enough jobs. So you intervene and relieve the burden. That is the first argument for social intervention program. The second argument is inclusive growth. In the past, you read a theory, developmental theory, and say that grow your GDP and expect that it will trickle down to those at the bottom level. Now, the dynamics have changed. We are looking at the bottom-up approach, where you empower the poor and the vulnerable at the bottom, and make sure that they participate in the growth process. When we were young, we had this NCNC, no contribution, no job. So you empower them to contribute to the growth process, and therefore you can enjoy. In this free SHS thing that people have argued against, I have always maintained my position. I have supported it. I'll continue to support it. Why? Because if you have 15% of Ghanaians having up to just SHS and above education, and then in the labor force, those you expect to grow your GDP, only 20% have higher education. So 80% do not have up to SHS, and this is a shame for a middle income economy. It's something shameful. So as for free SHS, I will support it. If you are saying that it,
so you don't buy the argument about it being, the need to revise it to make it more targeted, which would then be,
What is targeted? What is targeted? Because those saying targeted are saying that the rich must be made to pay.
Yes.
Right now, we don't have data for that. And secondly, even if we had data, I would not support that because the tax system in Ghana is progressive.
Right.
So it's already the rich that are paying the taxes.
Sure. I mean, the free SHS issue is something I flagged here for discussion later on.
Yes, so we'll come to social argument.
We'll come to that very well, and then we'll take the sides of that the other panelists as well. But still on Dr. Melto, still on the government flagship programs and the need for government to, like Dr. Ususakodia said, that perhaps, yes, it's a prudent thing for them to focus on their flagship program because this is what they campaigned on.
Yeah.
There's that other side of the argument that, yes, well, like I already posed to him, there's a need to also invest in capital, expenditure, which is ultimately going to, transform, the economy and what have you. But even limiting the argument within the flagship programs, let's look in Appendix 6 of the budget, it has the cost of government flagship programs. And if you look at it and the figures allocated for the respective flagship programs, you can get a sense of where government's priority is. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the One District, One Factory initiative, which, if you listen to the people when they talk, the experts, One District, One Factory, and somebody like Dr. Domfe would always say that he is very excited by this because of the impact it has, or the likely impact it can have on the economy. But look at the figure there. You have 150,810,000, I believe that's it. Yeah. And then as against livelihood empowerment against poverty, which is giving money into people's hands directly, that is 200 million. Clearly, LEAP is over and above 1D1F. Yeah. What does that say to you when you look at this? And again, there are a number of examples I could go on as we go along to show that there's a certain, priority mindset in here. So whereas 1D1F has a certain level of transformational potential, if you like, we are not spending as much as we need to, but we're doing more on LEAP, which is, you're not going to get anything really from LEAP, apart from putting money in people's hands. What are you going to get beyond that?
Thank you. I also want to extend my greetings to your viewers. I think you've probably started on a very good note by asking such questions, in that for the past 3 years, if you check the trend of government expenditure with projections as well as actuals, it's imperative to note that it's the expenditure is more of consumable oriented, consumable focused, in that if you always have your capital expenditure reduced, sacrifice for your recurrent expenditure. In fact, I want to disagree with my colleague who mentioned that it's good that the government cuts capital expenditure and concentrates on their social intervention program. Please, it has serious implications. In as much as a government, providing and intervening socially to help its citizens, I think we should also focus on, in fact, resourcing them from their labor. The issue of spending on your capital expenditure, it provides jobs as well. It expands your economy. In fact, if the government spends so much and want to distribute income, then I expect that when you construct roads in my area, when you construct schools in my area, the vulnerable who are looking for jobs will automatically go and offer them their services to the government, and then as well as make the necessary income from that. However, I wouldn't begrudge the government so much in here, but the figures are alarming. Could you imagine that over the past 3 years, consistently, the wage bill is hovering around 30%. The wage bill. The interest we pay for 2020, we are talking about capital expenditure of 10.8% against, the wage bill of 31%. So it tells you the direction a government is going.
But on the wage bill, what practically can the government do? I mean, you need to pay these
Yeah,
people. So
yeah.
what really can be done about that?
Yeah. So in fact, it tells you that there should be a paradigm shift by developing the private sector. You see, this is even, in fact, the target for the wage bill, to be frank with you, looking at the posture of the labor union, the government may even overspend because the doctors are... The doctors are striking, and I learned they are being spoken to and all that. However, you see, when you are too much consumable focused, it has serious implication for economy. And at the end of the day, apart from the social implications, you also have the fiscal implication. What are we telling the youth? Yes, I agree with you. Picking a figure, if you have a flagship program like one district, one factory, and the budget, your projection towards that program is 151 against providing for livelihood of over 200 million for livelihood. It tells you where you are going, where the focus is. But I can tell you that one of the reasons why most connoisseurs in both academia and as well as the financial industry or sector were so much enthused with this one district, one factory program has to do with the provision of job for the people. So if it is your focus, then we expect that the government should provide more of its resources in this area. What this means is that we are ready to share more of our resources to the needy than to provide for them, which they have the option to probably use their labor, provide or put their labor at the expense of the jobs to make their livelihood. Now, one alarming figure here that most people are not really taking into consideration: the development of the transportation system, the railway industry. In fact, I'm one of the few ones who were so much interested in the fact that the government, with its motive to develop the railway industry, set up a railway ministry, purposely to develop this particular
and that
industry.
has a budget of 117 that also less than the LEAP.
This is a capital-intensive project. I don't know the extent to which they've gotten to with their plans, but I can tell you, if the railway sector is developed, it has several implications. In fact, it's going to help our housing industry. The last time I traveled to Pram, and when I saw the project, the Segleme project, I asked myself, in fact, if there was an effective railway system that probably travels about 20 meters even away from that place, some of us will move from Accra to these places. The railway sector is a place that provides jobs for the people. I think the projection, I don't know whether this 117 million for the railway sector is just to probably continue with their feasibility studies or what, but it's a capital intensive area where you need more money into this area. Probably we have to, we need
to know exactly what it's going into.
What goes into that.
Let me go, yes.
All right.
If you're done, quickly to Dr. Lord Mensah here. And again, looking at a key question of revenue. Now, when you look at the budget, the minister indicated that to consolidate the gains achieved within the last 3 years, government intends to embark on, some agenda to drive the economic transformation forward in line with what he says the president's consolidated program and the Ghana Beyond Aid vision. Now, in there, you talk about domestic revenue mobilization, business regulatory reforms, intensified drive for FDI. And when you go through, you realize that, of course, these are really nothing new. And I believe Dr. Owusu-Sarkodie alluded to that fact that, for instance, in terms of revenue, we set targets, we consistently are not able to achieve the targets. And question then is it the question that we are not factoring in certain, relevant, if you like, factors that ought to be considered when setting these targets? I do want to believe that obviously we are not setting the targets in a vacuum. So if we are considering, for instance, the taxable population, for which reason we can project realistically, then what is the difficulty when it comes to these things, and why consistently we repeat some of these measures that we say we are going to do to consolidate the gains made and all of that?
Yeah, very good. Let me wish our viewers very well. If you look at, let me touch on some of the few things,
sure.
you questions that you asked them, and if you look at the budget deficit of 4.7 that has been projected, if we are to go by the numbers, clearly it's more than 5.0%. The reason why I'm saying this is that our GDP has been rebased. So whatever number that you are relating to a GDP, you should know that we have an increased GDP. If we are to go by the old GDP, then we are doing more than 5%. So effectively, we are doing more than 5%.
That's according to the old.
According to
but if we're working with the new, then?
Yes. If you are working with the new,
so if there's a new system, then we work with the new.
Project with 4.7. But let me clearly also say that this budget, more or less, seems to be like a budget that is overconfident. I mean, more or less looking at likely revenue that we can have, and then projections of expenditure that we can have. Now, if you look at the gap between the revenue that has been projected and then the expenditure, last year we projected around 13-point-something billion. This year it is about 18-point-something billion. Now, I would say that history does not favor us in achieving this, target. Also, you ask, why are we spending so much on LEAP than 1D, 1F? I would say it is strategic, because government, in its own wisdom, knows very well that if you are to invest more in 1D, 1F, the people will not feel it within that 4 years. So therefore, if you want the people to feel what you are doing, you have to give them the money direct. And that is why I presume that the LEAP is what has been allocated more funds than the 1D, 1F.
And is that not the reason why perhaps we are still where we are at?
No, hold on.
We always talk about industrialization, but we never get it to that point.
Let me answer your question.
Sorry for preempting
now,
your thoughts there.
Doc also mentioned that the government is spending more on less on capital expenditure, more on interest payment. That is not something that the government can do anything about. Do you know when Ghana shot its foot on paying more interest than its expenditure, capital expenditure? At the point where we saw that our debt was growing to a level where it is not going into projects that can be self-financing, that was when we shot our foot. And let me tell you that any country or any organization or any institution that fails to invest in capital expenditure is killing its future. And straight on, Ghana is killing its future. So I will tell you that our hands are tied. Interest is an obligation. You cannot avoid paying your interest. Otherwise, you'll be declared bankrupt. And you can never go anywhere to go and borrow again. Now, let me relate that to the current budget, the 18-point-something that has been declared as deficit that needs to be financed. You realize that clearly the government intends to borrow about 10-point-something billion from the outside world and 8 billion in-house. Now, that 8 billion that is going to be borrowed in-house, I tell you, has a tendency of, not bringing up the private sector. Because looking at the situation now, and the banking sector, and then all those fund management, and all those, microfinance, and you realize people have more confidence in government than a private man, or even the banks.
So they'd rather lend to them and crowd out.
Yes, exactly. That has to happen. There's no way, because a rational investor, there's no way rational investor will give his money to, a private man when he knows very well that there's an uncertainty. And obviously, government will be a safe haven.
But
so coming to the market,
the cleanup has led to a more robust. Has led to a more robust financial sector.
Remember, the investor is still not settled. As we speak now, it has not died out yet.
No.
Because people are going to be persecuted. More revelations are going to come out. I was thinking when we started, within a time period of 82 years, we would have finished everything. And then by this time, the system is cleared. And whoever is hesitating to send his money to the bank within 6 months, maybe would have settled and say, okay, fine, I want to invest now.
I don't think 2 years is too short a period for such a magnitude of cleanup.
Now, let me not run away from your question. You see, it is clear on the grounds that we keep on spending on revenue mobilization or revenue enhancement mechanisms. We've been investing. If you talk about national identification card, it's one of the ways of enhancing our revenue mobilization. If you talk about paperless port investment, it's one of them. Now, but the question we need to ask ourselves is that when we declare expenditure for a project, right, what percentage of the real, cost, or what percentage of the funding that goes into the project? Of course, there are leakages. And so, those expenditures that we've been incurring to enhance revenue mobilization are not yielding. They're not yielding. That is why, for the past 3 years, if you look at measures that is being put in place to ensure that we have, we have our revenue target.
They appear the same.
Appear the same.
Right. Well, I think
and
it's a good
this
point
particular
to take
budget, let me land here. And this particular budget, you could see clearly that everything that has been settled on to, enhance revenue mobilization has been a review of existing structures. And when you review, trust me, the impact might not be felt immediately. Sometimes some of the reviews, the impact will be felt not in the next year's budget. We're looking at maybe 2 years, 3 years to come. So when we are projecting, right, we have to be careful and be a bit realistic in terms of our projection.
Right.
Because I know, even though I know very well that most of the time the budget is driven by more politics than the economic fundamentals. If it's politics, then it's overly optimistic
document, isn't it? It's more political.
Of course, you cannot dissociate politics from economics.
Manifesto.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely it's driven by that. But
it's based on the manifesto.
Sure.
Can I touch on the capital?
Sure. We need to take a break, and when we come back, I'll definitely come to you for your reaction to that, as well as Dr. Domfe. So this is the key points. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
At FBN Bank, we see you. You wake up every morning and put in your best, planning for a better life. We know you. Investment and returns mean a lot to you. We think you need a partner who has transformed dreams, supported ideas, and set the path for technological advancement. Someone with over 125 years of putting you first. From First Bank of Nigeria comes our subsidiaries in Sub-Sahara Africa, DRC, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and beyond. You can bank on our experience because at FBN Bank, we put you first.
From across our great nation, Frytol is searching to unearth talents. Watch as our contestants cook with Frytol's amazing range of products. Cooking skills at its best. The prize, a life-changing business investment of 100,000 Ghana cedis, courtesy of Frytol Wilma Africa. Who will be the first ever Frytol Enriching Lives Cooking Champion? November 16th on TV3, watch the biggest reality cooking show at 6 p.m. every Saturday. Brought to you by Frytol. Frytol Enriching Lives, unearthing talent, fulfilling dreams.
With the 4G speed, get the real 4G experience on Vodafone's Gigabit network.
The future is exciting. Ready?
FM, TV3, and Planet One Multimedia present the 3rd annual Ghana Home and Lifestyle Fair 2019, bringing together all real estate and construction companies, home decor and furniture companies, CCTV security and internet service providers, gardening, lights, paints, doors, tiles, home appliances, kitchen and baths, and insurance companies to exhibit their products and services to the general public at the 3rd annual Ghana Home and Lifestyle Fair 2019. Theme: Creating Homes Worthy of Living. Date: Friday 6th December to Sunday 8th December 2019. Venue: Alisa Hotel, Ridge. Time: 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day. To exhibit your products and services or to sponsor, call 0244-627-609 or 024-7922-663. Now, media partners: TV3, Onua TV, Onua FM, 3news.com, Daily Graphic, High Links Communication. Refreshed by Neutral Tiger Nut Drink and Papa's Pizza. Powered by 3FM and Planet One Multimedia. The 3rd annual Ghana Home and Lifestyle Fair 2019.
Are you happy with the development in your community? So what do you do about it?
Me, I'm just watching all.
Me, I'll complain, sir.
We are praying for Mother Ghana has shift things in the spirit. Yes!
But there's something more you can do. Vote December 17th.
This year?
Yes. This year, December 17th, is when you elect Assembly and Unit Committee members and vote to decide if political parties can sponsor candidates in the future. Sir, your votes will do more to change what you don't like than you think. So come December 17th, vote.
Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to the Key Points live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we're currently looking at the 2020 budget as presented by the Finance Minister, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, earlier on in the week. And the panelists in studio are Dr. George Domfe, we also have Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie and Dr. John Kweku Mensah Mauto and Dr. Lord Mensah, giving their perspectives on the budget. Dr. Edu,
you wanted to touch on the capital expenditure.
You're saying why the craze about that?
I am not against capital expenditure.
Okay.
Capital expenditure is good for any economic transformation. You need it.
Sure.
The roads must be constructed. You need railway. You need airport. You need them. But when your resources are limited in economics, you make your choice, the scale of preference. And this government campaign on the flagship programs, and they have to deliver. So when you have to, this is what we call the policy choice. Now, do you want your road to be fixed or you want your child to go to school free? It's a choice that you have to make.
You need a blend of
no, we need, and I'm coming. I'm developing an argument.
He's developing an argument.
I'm developing an argument. Everybody wants the two.
Right.
Everybody wants the two. But when your resources are limited, you make a choice.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
And what is capital? In any case, what is capital? When you put up a building, that is capital expenditure. But when you have to renovate it, it becomes recurrent.
Sure.
So you put up a lift in a building, you have to repair that lift, it becomes goods and service, it becomes your recurrent. In any case, education is also human capital. Now, why I was so obsessed with this capital expenditure until we did the research at IFS. So I can understand where my senior brothers are coming from. When we did the research at IFS, we took a data in the Fourth Republic from 1993 to 2016 or 2017. And what did we find? The correlation between non-oil GDP and capital expenditure was negative over the period. The correlation between macroeconomic stability, i.e. inflation and cedi depreciation, was 0.8. What is correlation? Correlation means when this one moves that way, this one should also move that way. It means that when macroeconomic stability moves 1%, the impact or the non-oil GDP will also move by 0.8%. And that is positive. And that is why I understand. And this is the evidence. This is the evidence. When the previous administration was also so obsessed with capital expenditure and they were constructing roads with infrastructure, what was the GDP growth rate that they left the country with? 3.4%. Now, this administration has sacrificed capital expenditure, has maintained macroeconomic stability, and the evidence is that we have averaged 7%. Average 7%. So the evidence that I have with you, it also reinforces the results that we got from our research, that capital expenditure, though needed, the major contributory factor to non-oil GDP growth is macroeconomic stability. And macroeconomic stability we have enjoyed for the past 3 years. And I'm happy that the 2020 budget is going to maintain the focus to sustain the macroeconomic stability.
Right.
So I am not against capital.
Just a minute. I think we'll definitely need to move beyond this. We'll definitely Doc, please, just a minute. We'll definitely need to move beyond this capital expenditure, because it looks like we are getting fixated on that. But yes, but we need to. But you made a point, and I think we need to interrogate that. And I'll take that to Dr. George Domfe. There's been the argument that, well, you talked about the previous administration. Obviously, yes, they were big on, infrastructure and all. There's the argument that, well, perhaps it didn't translate into what we expected it to be because of the cost of that and the fact that perhaps there were some...
Now, having the benefits.
Yes, that, but the cost of it itself perhaps was overly, if you like, bloated.
Exactly.
And so that's why you don't necessarily see that nexus.
Exactly.
So it's not necessarily the case that there is,
spend on.
Exactly. And look, if you could touch on that.
Let me give you an example.
In 30 seconds, let me go to George Domfe. Dr. Domfe, sorry.
In the previous administration, I am not criticizing them, but I'm stating a fact. When they were investing in infrastructure, the construction subsector was growing negative. What is infrastructure? You build road, you construct buildings. Meanwhile, construction was going negative.
Right. Good.
Yeah, so let me just pick it from where.
And that'll be the last on capital expenditure, I promise.
Not on capital expenditure, but we have to be very careful. When we are talking about capital expenditure, it has never been so good. Sometimes when we talk, we appear to suggest that some few years back we were doing so well. In fact, the exceptional case was 2016, when we spent 7 billion on capital expenditure. It has always been around 5%, right? And so if you also spent, 5 billion, and so if you look at the average for the last few years and average for the last 10 years, you don't see anything significant. I'm significantly different.
Apart from 2016.
Exactly, apart from 2016. So 2016 was 7 billion.
Exceptional year.
Exactly, and that is what we're going to see this year. This year they are saying 9.3, and hopefully we may hit their 7. So capital expenditure has always been low. And we have always been crying, we have always been shouting. Of course, the previous administration, we saw flamboyant, projects. And so sometimes when you see the circle, the Dubai thing, you tend to think that everything was well with every part of the country. If that was so, we shouldn't be crying today over roads and all those things. Again, there's something I want to quickly comment on, the 1D1F. That government is not spending. The money going there is not enough.
Compared to other flagship programs.
That it is more of a private sector led, program. Now, that 150 million Ghana cedis that you're talking about is mainly going to, help assist them in getting loans, land, and they have. Government has a extent to which it goes into this particular program. Because of what history teaches us, in the 1960s, Kwame Nkrumah had 79 factories, all owned by state, and we didn't see any results thereafter. So now we want to empower individuals to own the factories, and so the 1DF, policy,
1D1F,
that we're talking about is not for government. Government is just helping them to, individual business people to set it up. And so the capital, the huge capital outlay, the intensive, whatever that they are spending is mainly coming from the, individuals. Government is just, as I said, helping them not in getting loans and, getting some other things, not to spend directly on the, the factories as. But
that's granted. But also, shouldn't you be seen to be, putting some substantial amount into the sector to indicate the kind of, priority you put on that particular sector or with this particular flagship program? Yeah. And this is, I'm not taking it in a vacuum. I'm looking at it as against other flagship programs.
Yeah, so for this particular one, as I've said, that is our future. We are talking about capital expenditure as our future. I also see manufacturing sector equally as our future. Because that is where we will create jobs. Exactly. And when the finance minister was talking, he talked about the fact that in the next 10 years, 1 billion youth are going to roam about without job in the world. And when you look back to our backyard here, it is almost happening. We always have over 300,000 roaming about without work every year.
And now we have to spend 840 million on NAPCO, for instance, because of this kind of situation. Yeah. We now need to find jobs.
And unfortunately, that might not even be sustainable because after 3 years they are coming. And so you need to build their economy to even expand enough to. Exactly. So after 3 years, so they can get somewhere to go instead of going back to sit home and continue from where they were. Right. And so manufacturing sector is very, very important. And I like what is happening. There are a lot of things government must do. One of it had to do with the policy rate, that balloon to 27%, and I'm happy to be the second highest in Africa. We were better than Namibia. But 2016 it has dropped to 25.5%. Today it has come to 16%. But there is a problem. In as much as the drop is huge, more than 10 percentage points, we are not seeing the lending rate coming down to reflect the huge decline. And so average lending rate has gone down from about 35% to about 25%. And that is expected because it's not only the policy rate that drives that agenda. And so the president calls that they should cut the lending rate. Is a right step. But then it is not only policy rate. And the banks are out there to make profit. They pay their people. And so they consider quite a number of things apart from the policy rate. And so we need to maybe get to understand that, and government maybe needs to set for them those other things. How do we address them? The bank risk ratio and all those things. How do we address them so that the lending rate will also come down? It's when it comes down that people in businesses are going to expand, and those who haven't even made up their minds to enter would be encouraged to go and open up businesses, and that is how we can move from where we are.
Very well. Let's switch to this other aspect of the conversation where government is saying that there's going to be, here I'm looking at paragraph 228 of the budget where it's talking about changing the environment for private sector credit delivery. And that's where the talk about, the National Development Bank and the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund come in. There's the concern that perhaps this is going to be an add-on to what we already have, which necessarily isn't yielding results that we ultimately want to see in terms of having policy banks like the ADB, the NIB, and if you could even add the Exim Bank. As in, currently these have their specific focus areas, but perhaps not necessarily, getting the results that we desire. So if you bring this in, yes, it may be a laudable suggestion or measure to take, but practically, what are we to get from it? What is going to be the change? What are we going to derive from this?
Thank you, Abna. I think in as much as I want to move straight to this particular argument,
you want to
I just want to
tell me it's not capital expenditure.
Yes, it is. It does. You see, let's get this right. We are not saying that capital expenditure is everything. Okay, irrespective of your improvement in your agricultural sector, if the roads are not constructed, a simple transportation from Afram Plains to Accra would add additional costs to your products. There might be a number, huge bumper harvests, but the roads may not be good to transport them to the market. We have several post-harvest losses through bad roads. We are talking about capital expenditure. Every economy, every developed economy developed its capital projects. In fact, it is an investment project by itself. That is it. Now, let me come back to the financial sector. I think I've been one of the few who have always never want the government to go into establishing additional banks. Look, if you want a policy, financial institution, you already have two major ones, in fact, three major ones: GCB, ADB, NIB. It behoves on the government, the majority shareholder, to see how best they can review their structures. If we are talking about credit today, one of the areas I don't know what is happening to the politicians has to do with the real estate industry. The way and manner we are paying lip service to this sector, I do not know whether they've really considered it very well. Yes, it's established that we have a deficit in our housing, sector. Today, I would have been happy if the government is going to establish a bank, a mortgage institution to assist the youth in getting shelter. Today, the average Ghanaian, the middle class, how many of us can even afford affordable houses they are talking about? But I can tell you, if I have a 4-bedroom or 2-bedroom where I can buy it over 20 years, I think I will not go and be struggling over any land with a landguard to probably build for the sake of providing shelter for my family. However, this sector is so booming. In fact, every industry, every economy mostly strive on the real estate, sector. The Ghanaian real estate sector has not yet been developed. So if I expect the government to probably come out with a bank, then I think we should be looking at a bank purposely to finance real estate. Now, coming back to the financial industry, how to redirect and probably develop the financial industry. Probably that will move us to what is happening in the banking sector. To be frank with you, Abner, what has happened over the past few years, I'll always mention. I want to agree with my colleague here, Doc, that the spillover effect of the insolvent banks, if we don't tackle it now, in the next few months to come, I think we may probably face more problems than what we find ourselves in today. Practically, the government should be looking at devoting more than $1.5 billion for a bailout. The bailout you're talking about is not a normal recurrent bailout of liquidity. We are talking about bailout to even preserve existing financial institutions. Now, figures are, on daily basis, you have contradictory figures, some coming from SEC, some coming from the government institutions, as to the total loss of even the last 53 collapsed fund management firms. I can tell you that in the fund management institutions, they manage a chunk of not only the retail investment sector, but well, institutional investment funds. Institutional investment funds, we are talking about insurance companies, we are talking about even existing banks, both universal and other financial institutions in there. And if we are estimating the cost of these losses to be around 9 billion Ghana cedis, which somebody says is even more than the Sino Hydro money we are talking about. 9 billion Ghana cedis. Let's assume that 50% of that is from the institutional investors, like the existing insurance firms, as well as some banks. What's going to happen is that next year, if they are not built out, some of them have to go down.
Well, still within the financial sector, I go to Dr. Mensa here quickly. Your question is worth, pondering over. And as we do that, still, I still, keep us within that whole financial sector cleanup thing in the aftermath. It's estimated that about 16 billion cedis have so far gone into, this whole cleanup process. And I think what people are trying to understand is exactly what it went into. And in terms of recoveries, questions are also rife, as in, for instance, how far have we been able to recover, what are the amounts involved in there? No, we're just trying to understand exactly what this amount of money has gone into. Any ideas?
Well, if you look at the financial space, let me take this opportunity to address some few highlights before I come to that. My stream left colleagues.
You two of you on the stream side and you're throwing
Japanese there. I think
the west side of the east side.
Doc mentioned about policy rate not being the only driver of the interest rate on the market. I will differ on that because we used to have a base rate, which was mainly driven by the bank's specific indicators. Now there was a change to that. We went to Ghana reference rate, which the main indicators are the monetary policy rate and then treasury bills rate. So I differ on that. Now let me come to Dr. Sarkodie.
Which you're entitled to.
Let me come to Dr. Sarkodie's issue on the correlation between the capex and then hold on.
I'm looking at the time. You may. So just note it down. Yes, carry on, please.
The capex and then the correlation with the GDP growth. I don't know how they computed that, but trust me, if you are computing them contemporaneously, if you spend now, you don't expect the impact now. The impact on the economy.
They did it over a period.
It will be over a period.
So they had a trend.
So hold on. Yeah. So you don't expect that. We don't expect that it will. You have that contemporaneous correlation.
But that's what he's pointing. That's what he's pointing you to. That it was over a period of 24 years. You still think that isn't a good time?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Let me come to my.
You don't have anything scientific to rebut that. They have done something scientific.
Methodological issue. That's
fine. Carry on.
It is a methodological issue.
Okay, that's okay.
No,
that's okay. Just a minute.
Hold on.
Just a minute.
Let me come to your question.
One at a time, please.
Let me come to your question. Let me come to your question now. You see, 16 billion cedis as a bailout to those banks. Now, the banks had deposits, which were liabilities, right? Anticipation that those liabilities could have been converted to assets, which would be the loans that they give out and all those. But those did not come as a result of failure. So therefore, this 16 billion will go to pay this deposit. But the question is whether the depositor will get his principal with the interest accrued over the years. That's the question. Now, all these banks and all those microfinance have been seeded up to a receiver, right? And that receiver needs to pay off these depositors' funds. The 16 billion went in there. But the question is, was the 16 billion earmarked for this exercise? Couldn't we have channeled it in a different way to ensure that at least we keep the structure of the financial space and still change the possible, management or possible owners, and in the end, we'll have the system running as it's supposed to be. Rather than going by that military approach of crashing company here and there, crashing institutions here and there.
Why do you call it military approach of crashing? They were working with a law. And the players in there were expected to comply with the law. They were found to have violated the law.
Who made those laws? Are we not the ones who made those laws? The laws could have been modified.
So as we go, we change the laws just to
let me tell you
not deal with the situation.
There's a law, right? Let me give you a typical example. That says that don't urinate in this hall, right? Now, common sense also tells you that we can also, in the midst of people, don't do that. Do you get it? So forget about the law.
But once you
let's look at
once
it.
Once you do the act which is
scenarios.
prohibited,
No, we are all doing analysis. We can just project and play scenarios. I mean, now let's look at the various scenarios where we could have saved the situation, possibly without necessarily having that huge impact in distorting the financial space as it stands now. Okay? Now that 16 billion as a bailout could have been used to buy shares in some of these companies that are grounded. Right? And still be part of the decision-making body, where government with taxpayers' money still be part of the decision-making body. Now, this 16 billion is taxpayers' money. Or you don't see it that way. It's taxpayers' money. And that is going into those bailout. Now, what is the interest of the taxpayer in these institutions that we are bailing out? Who is representing the taxpayer? So we could have, find a way to pump this money. Most of those companies were frozen at the upper part of their balance sheet. They were not liquid. So use your liquidity, pump in this money, right? And then hold up some ownership.
After pumping
and after holding the ownership, you become a part owner.
After injecting capital in and seeing that capital go to waste, you inject.
Hold on. You don't inject capital by not following up. When you provided the liquidity support to those banks, what did you do? You just provided it. Did you know that liquidity support was still taxpayers' money? So what was the representative of the taxpayer on those companies, Capital Bank and all those?
Very well.
Did we see that?
Let me bring in the views
so for me,
of the
you were asking of whether the
listeners.
3 additional banks and all those Exim banks were needed or not.
I will do that.
So effectively,
it's not Exim Bank, the National Development Bank.
The National Development Bank. See, Abuna, we have a history. Let's not forget.
30 seconds, you finish, because I need to. You have just 30 seconds.
Ghana used to operate, bank-specific lines where banks are channeled to a particular production agenda. Where we used to have Bank for Housing and Construction, Agriculture Bank, National Investment Bank, and all those. They were channeled purposely for a purpose. Then, in the 1990s, we came by adopting that universal banking law. And by so doing, banks started operating as investment banks, and then at the same time, what? Commercial banks. So, what prevents an investment bank to make investment? Do you get it? What prevents an investment bank to go into construction? What prevents an investment bank to provide funds into real estate sector?
Those are their decisions to
make.
We're talking about,
but you know what happens?
Banks set up by the state for certain purposes.
Don't cut me out. Let me finish my statement.
I'm just enhancing the conversation.
Okay, then. Right, that's fine. You see, then suddenly we adopted this universal banks situation. Now, in the end, banks were investing, but most banks were concentrating their loan to government-tied activities. Giving loans to contractors, highly concentrating their loans, forgetting that banking is about diversifying your loans. Yeah. Giving it out to contractors, somebody will tell about 60% of his loans are contractors who are working for the government. Right. Knowing very well that there's something we call political risk, which can happen anytime there's a regime change.
Very well. I will have Dr. Domfe react to what you said in respect of something he has said. But before that, I'll bring in the views of our listeners and viewers. They're an important part of this. So this one is coming. It says, "Good morning, Abena. The man who talked about free SHS relating it to progressive tax and the rest has gotten it wrong. Even the finance minister said it's unwise for him to take his child to school and would not pay fees when he can pay for more than 10 students. Ajmal in Kumbungu says, please, Abuna, ask Dr. Lord Mensah to tell me the difference between the budget as was read by the finance minister and the political party manifesto, as the national budget is always used to carry out programs and policies in party manifestos. This one says, this is Koshi Badohu in Denu. He says, this comparison of growth and economic indices in percentage and absolute terms can be deceptive. Percentage is a function of base. If you inherit an economy of $100 and you add $20, that is 20% growth. If another government inherited the $120 economy and added $23, that translates to 19% growth, even though that government has added more. Inflation, interest rate, exchange rate, debt to GDP ratio, and all other economic indices are not targets. They are neutral, adjustable economic management tools. The most important thing is context. Do you agree with this statement here? I'm throwing it to you guys. And that's Koshi Badohu in Denu. This one also says, good morning, Abena and your panelists. God bless you all for the intellectual discourse today. Hashtag, that's Solomon Budumburam. Good morning, Abna. If the man is suggesting that targeting of free SHS is not good, why are we doing LEAP, school feeding, etc.? Okay, that goes to you, Dr. Uzis. I think. Well, another one coming in says the economic policies and programs of the NPP in its first 4 years is simply election-winning oriented economics. Give the mass of the people money to eat and caught their support for 2020. The economic statistical figures are massaged to impress and keep the NPP in power for another 4 years, but practically the economic future of Ghana is bleak. That's Divine in Dansuma. Let me take another one here. It says, Abna, can you know that even though the government has a law not to borrow over 5%, he has strategically and inherently... I'm not sure I'm getting this. I'm sorry, it's not quite clear. Let me go to the last one here. Good morning to you, please. I think our leaders have to be very serious in building our database. I think if this is done well, it will lead Ghana to a good development process, and that's Haruna, Peggy, and Tamale. There are a number of messages coming through, but I think I'll pull the brakes on them here and go to Dr. Domfe, because you wanted to react to something. But lastly, I think we need to touch on the fact that this budget was conspicuously missing imposition of taxes. And question is, of course, it's good for the Ghanaian because we don't want to be saddled with debt. But question is, in view of how we're doing with our revenue, generation over the years, looking at, the historical antecedent, if you like, was this an expedient decision for political purposes, or that indeed we've come to the point where we are moving from taxation to production?
Okay. So thank you very much. And we've always been talking about the government creating enabling environment. The discussion here has always been that these days government shouldn't be in business, but government should rather create the enabling environment for the businesses to thrive. And that is why I like the one district, one factory concept. That is more of a private sector led agenda, and it is very good. Now, Dr. Mensah talked about the fact that policy rate is the only rate, is the only...
It's not.
Yeah, pushing the lending rate. I beg to differ. I don't think that is what is the case. Bank risk ratio, for example, is very, very important here. Yeah, because that talks about if the banks are giving out the money and people are not able to pay, that gives them the sense. For example, if the bank risk ratio happened to be 1.7%, and that, I think the lowest we had was around 2004. What did we see? At that time, what it meant was that if the banks gave out 100 loans to 100 people, only 2 of them were going to run away. What did we see? The banks were moving from one house to house, encouraging people to come and take. Now the bank risk ratio hovers around 14%, and you are saying that is not important. It is important. Sure. And so I beg to differ from the right. Very well. And that's the second time you are begging to differ, so that's fine. And then another thing that we were also talking about... the revenue, taxation, I think we should look at that. No, revenue. When we talk about revenue, we need so much that our expenditure has almost double within 3 years. And so when we are saying we are not meeting our revenue targets, it leaves an impression that we are not doing well at all with the revenue. Something which I don't think that is
set the targets.
Yeah, you set the targets.
So if the revenue is growing.
Yeah. So in nominal terms, I don't normally want to talk in nominal figures, but within last 3 years, because inflation has not been so phenomenal, when I use the nominal figures, I don't think I'll be too wrong. 3 years ago, I'm talking about 2016, the total revenue was 34 billion Ghana cedis. The following year, 2017, we went to 43. But earlier, if you go back to our history, almost every year, we were increasing by 2 billion. And so all of a sudden, we move away from 34, 43, 49, and this year, we were looking for 58, but we say we will get 54. So if you see, it's a giant leap. And so if we say that investment is going in there and it's not yielding anything, it doesn't. It's not something that I will support.
Right.
We are maybe we are not getting enough to match the ever increasing expenditure. That is, I mean, the situation.
Okay. I think I'll take the taxation question. I'll move it to Dr. Sarkodie here because you've had years, and then we'll be wrapping up here in the next, I think, 5 minutes. You can talk about free SHS, but the tax bit and the position, yes.
Yeah. So the free SHS, we have seen results, an increment in enrollment by 43%. I am not saying that when you want to target, it's all wrong, but the data, we don't have that data to do the targeting. The fact that we don't have the data to do the targeting does not mean that you shouldn't start at all. You see,
but are we even making an attempt to get the data? Are we doing that simultaneously?
Yeah, that's up to them. That is up to them. But we are discussing the free SHS, the impact, the socio-economic and political impact of that.
But then the sustainability is also key.
I'm coming. The resource is showing that is something good, and I have demonstrated to you that the labor force, the people that you want to grow your GDP,
should be of a certain kind.
Yes, only 20% have free SHS and above. In any case, let's look at subsidy for education versus social benefits. The government is subsidizing tertiary education. The fees that the private students pay from Ashesi University and Central University is much higher than the fees they pay at Legon. And that fee is subsidized. Government has subsidized. In fact, the government pays lecturers. Central University, the owner pays the lecturer, but government pays lecturers. So the subsidy infrastructure, subsidy in the graduate students, even the graduate students, both masters and PhD, the thesis grant, bursary, and nobody is talking about that. But when government brings free SHS, then it is causing fiscal instability. Now, it is in the literature that the social benefit of basic education and secondary education is higher than tertiary education.
Definitely it is, but we're looking at how sustainable that would be too, and we're trying to get a sense of how we can get that. You understand?
I have made my point.
Sure.
I have made my point that education is also capital investment. It is also a capital investment.
Sure, definitely.
So we need the labor force to be educated.
Very well.
Imagine the food vendor, imagine the bus conductor, imagine the taxi driver have SHS, the hygiene in the food with the food vendor. Let me come to the last one, the taxation to production.
I was going to move that to the west.
I'll touch on it. I'm leaving, so I'll touch on it. Clearly, those taxes which were abolished in 2017 were really nuisance taxes. The Laffer curve shows that those taxes should have been abolished in the year 2014. Now they were abolished. We've lost some revenue in those years, but production has picked up. I am not saying that everything is good and we are in heaven. No, but we have made some progress. And these are the figures. The production, agri production growth rate has increased from 2.9% to 6.4%.
But compared to 2018, 2019 didn't do so well.
Yes, I agree. No, you are wrong. Even agri 4.8 in 2018, and it is estimated to reach 6.4 by the end of 2019. I'm coming. Industry has picked up from 4.3% in 2016 to 8.8 in 2019, expected to reach 8.8 in 2019. Services, 2.8, expected to reach 5.4. So the data is showing that some progress has been made. So I am not saying that everything, the economy has transformed and everybody is looking good. I am not saying that, but
you think we're making progress.
But there's a result.
Very well. To the east side coast here. So I'm leaving you with the taxation to production thing. Is that what we're seeing with the absence of new taxes or increased taxes in this 2020 budget, or it's just for political gains, if you like? It's an expedient measure to take. And we can do that in a minute, and then Dr. Lord Mensah has a minute as well.
I think for the past few years, 3 years, you could conjecture from the posture of the current government that their intent is to sway from the normal tax-oriented economy to a production-oriented economy. And I think the argument boils down to how to generate revenue. Okay, and I was so much pleased with the strategies that are put in place to ensure that is my main headache. Normally, when you have problems, the most important thing is to find solution.
Exactly.
Now, how do we solve the problem? How do we make our economy a productive oriented economy. Here we are when we needed so much investment in this sector. Contemporary tax collection, it's not like the olden days where we knew each and every one. I mean, physical collection. No, we've stopped that. And I'm so much happy that the issue of collecting revenue is going digital. We need to get to the stage where the issue of widening tax net will not be a matter of semantics.
Long-standing.
There shouldn't be semantics, but
right.
we need to operationalize it. And how do we do that? Now, people are now living in the digital world. So if I want to tax, that is one of the main, basis for really reaching out to the average income earner to also contribute towards the development of this country.
But this whole digitization thing has been going on, but still we are not meeting that.
No. I think this particular government has been able to invest so much in that. I mean, look at the conversion of the manual system in the port to automation, and today we know the TIN numbers have been introduced, and now the major work has to do with how to tax the online operations. In fact, there are a number of shops registered at the Western General Department which have no physical existence.
Yeah, we need to work on that, but of course,
and
too bad I would have to move
to reach out to them, then you need to join them over there.
Very well.
Right.
Thank you, but too bad I have to cut you short there. But Dr. Lord Mensah, your concluding remarks here.
No, I'm not. Am I concluding?
Yes, you are. I mean, yes, you are. Yes.
You mentioned taxation to production.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think we are on course.
Okay.
But to transform an economy from taxation to production, it doesn't come overnight. We shouldn't expect it will happen within 4 years. No. Now, if you talk about no tax in this current budget, I see tax, but it will come somewhere next year in the review, because the government has sensed that the e-commerce, right? E-commerce is the hallmark now.
Yeah. And this is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. And they accept that is the global trend now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you could see investment going into digitization.
That is it.
And so therefore, the government cannot afford to avoid taxes in those areas. Yeah. And so going forward, I presume by the next year, middle year review, the government will introduce some taxes in there.
Right.
But Ghanaians will not take it light because it's an election.
We'll wait for that day. But this is what you what do you want to say? Free as just 30 seconds, please. That is all I'm giving you. 30 seconds, then we go.
Talking about the free SHS thing that people are making so much noise about. If you ask me, I think it is very, very important. My brother here mentioned that the data. We have
it's not
now,
available to
it's not
support
telling us that. It's not telling us that if you meet every 100 adults, only 15 of them have completed secondary school education or higher. OECD, countries, American, Europe, and the other places, it's over 90%.
Right.
And so we are far away. And last July, World Bank said that our human capital index, the score is 44%, sure. And that if you score 44%, it means that in the next 18 years, the next generation of Ghana has already lost 56% of its productive capacity.
Right.
We so hear you don't wait.
Thank you. We hear you.
Don't wait at all.
Thank you so much.
The public debt may threaten the macroeconomic stability.
That's fine.
So you need to deal with it.
Sure. Yeah. That's fine. I think you chipped that in really well.
Thank
you so much. And let me say thank you to my guest, Dr. George Domfed, Development Economist and Senior Research Fellow at the Center for Social Policy Studies, University of Ghana. Also, we've had Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie, who's a Research Fellow at IFS. Dr. John Kweku Mensah-Malta has also been with us. He's the Dean, School of Graduate Studies at the UPSA, and Dr. Lord Mensah is a Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We'll be back to look at the upcoming 17 December nationwide referendum. See you shortly.
Barely 3 months ago, Freedom Foundation and Verna Mineral Water, we came to the Volta region, precisely Jabupo BA Primary School. We discovered that most of the kids were taking their classes under trees, which was nothing to write home about and extremely parallel to what a good education can give to anyone.
The primary level, class 1 to 6, was just a pavilion that was built in 1992. And we saw their urinal, not any good thing to talk about.
Freedom Foundation and our consumers, we decided to do something about it. So we built a new state-of-the-art classroom for the kindergarten kids, and it was beautiful.
They gave us a promise to come and do the primary schools for us.
And today the whole community of Jabupo is beaming with smiles. Be the reason for someone to smile today.
I think that if you're one person who just patronizes water for the sake of, quenching your thirst, you should rethink and go for companies that are very responsible to the society. And I am very happy that Verna is not just interested in making profits by selling water to Ghanaians, but they're putting some of that money back into society.
For Verna to do this year, I should say that thanks so much to them, and they should continue this good work.
We promise you we are going to use that money you are using to buy Verna mineral water to build another schools in different regions.
Let's always remember to go for Verna drinking water.
Thank you to you, our consumers. A big thank you to Freedom Foundation for giving them 7 new classroom blocks. We couldn't have done it without you. Keep changing lives, keep drinking Verna.
Niebeshi, Enya Quenchia. Enya say abayo yi entumi enyini na wa wi suku entumi kam no game rana hyehyɛ so wei ɛyɛ mfomso America tenten ɛdeba enyina so binti ɛna yɛ kwansini aduasa. Y&W Industry Ghana Limited, producers of high quality building products at competitive prices. Most people know us for our high quality UPVC windows and doors, stainless steel banisters and balustrades, stainless steel burglar proof and steel security doors. Now, let me introduce you to our newest products and services. Our bulletproof door. It has 15 locking systems. We have also introduced onto the market fireproof door. It can resist fire for up to 3 hours, giving you time to get help in the event of fire. And from floor to ceiling, we offer one of the finest interior design and decor services using waterproof and fireproof materials. Visit our showrooms today in our Accra branch located in the Marble House Yard off Graphic Road. Locate our head office on the Wager Kaswa Highway opposite the Wager Lake. Call us on 0556 322 650 or 0545 600000 and 0302 240791. Visit us online at ywindustry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at YWIndustryGH.
Enjoy your deliciously rich and creamy Richoco, made from the finest Ghanaian cocoa, milk and sugar.
Yummy.
Richoco, made from the finest Ghanaian cocoa. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
The race to stardom on Ghana's biggest reality show has taken off. Oh yeah!
Follow 4 accomplished music legends, Bessa Simons, Apietus, Adam, and Adina as they mentor their talents to stardom.
Don't miss the exciting journey as we discover a new music star to win a 2-bedroom house and the bragging rights of being the winner of TV3 Mentor Reloaded.
Get ready for a new music star. Make a date this and every Sunday at 8 p.m.
TV3 Mentor Reloaded.
4 celebrated mentors, just 1 winner. Mentor takes you higher.
Brought to you by Heaven Black Mosquito Coil and Insecticide Spray, and Napa Mackerel, Feco Spray Starch, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil, Cocoa Dairy Free Coconut Milk, Roma Insecticide Spray and Coil, Shine Tomato Paste, Vital Mineral Water.
This week on Music.
You don't want to miss this. Brought to you by Adonko. Shop at Jumia Black Friday.
Sissy, this week on Etibana, I'm catch your plan that yesterday. When you look for sprinters, go to Barbie Street to a friend Odom Street. For Google Map manufacturer, don't know what I got some wood damper. And to place at you for the field. Hi, Wafra HFC. I am hosted food court. Now, some night there, one of one no port, the whole Jahon Casaquan ever way field. And Kakrana one in town. Hi, our London dollar for that. But what I was super money. This week, Manolo HFC, Nayako, Waya, Conrad to Bilka, Etibana, Sissy.
Itziban shows this and every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on TV3. Brought to you by
Napa Mackerel. Warm Up shows every Saturday at 10 a.m. Make a date on TV3.
Welcome back. This is still The Key Points. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. Just gone by was a conversation that looked at the 2020 budget and matters arising. Now we're turning our attention to matters involving local governance, where we are going to be discussing the upcoming 17 December 2019 nationwide referendum, which is going to ask the question whether or not we would want political parties to sponsor candidates at the local level elections. And in the studio with me are, from my extreme left, we have Mr. Martin Pebu. He is a private legal practitioner. Next is Madam Josephine Nkrumah. She is a chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE. And to my right, we have Dr. Eric Odro Osai. He is the Dean, Institute of Local Government Studies. Good morning, lady and gentlemen. It's good to have you.
Good morning.
Good. So this very interesting developing matter around the upcoming referendum. It's gaining traction. I think that debate, yes or no, is, raging on, and a number of stakeholders or interest groups have issued statements here and there. We are trying to understand exactly what it is we are looking for as a people, what ultimately would be in the best interest of the country. I will start with you, madam. Ladies first, they say. Yeah. It's not often that I have ladies on the show, so oh well, for a good cause. So, madam, it's good to have you. And you have issued a statement, yes, the NCC, signed by the Director of Communication and Corporate Affairs, Mrs. Joyce Ifutu. And it is headed Correction of Misinformation on the Facts of the Upcoming 2019 National Referendum. So clearly, you had cause, as an NCC, had cause to put out this statement because of what you found to be a misinformation or miscommunication about the whole process. Yes. Now, tell us what that misinformation is, and then the correction about that.
Well, NCC, as you know, has been on the ground educating the citizens on the upcoming district level elections and the national referendum. But the feedback we kept getting from most people was, oh, it's on the election of MMDCs. And then to add to it, you found or you heard similar statements made in the media space. In fact, you had even high personalities in office equally making statements to that effect. So we realized that if we didn't put out a statement that corrected this misconception, in fact, on the day, December 17, people would very well go to the polls and find that the question that they were anticipating to answer is not at all a question. And that in itself too can be a backlash for all of us. So as an institution that is supposed to educate, we thought it necessary to bring out this statement, to issue a statement correcting the facts as is and allowing people then to make an informed decision based on accurate facts.
Sure. So what do you say to people who are saying that, well, this is a good statement to put out there, but perhaps it could have, the NCC could have been more proactive to ensure that this perhaps wouldn't have been even necessary? Because right from the get-go, sensitization would be,
right from the get-go, we were putting out the correct facts. Right from the get-go, when we realized and observed that some media houses.
So what could have motivated, or not motivated, but led to this misconception or misinformation?
It is because, you see, I think largely we all understand that there's been a clamor for by the people to elect their MMDCs. Right. It goes way beyond even 2011, the Constitutional Review Commission's report. So there's clear evidence that suggests that Ghanaians want to elect their MMDCs. So when people begin to tie the process of what is going on in Parliament and link it to the referendum, there is a certain assumption that then what the referendum is about is actually the election of MMDCs. Right. So I think there was that underlying desire by the people. And
so they were creating their own question as it were then.
Yes, and people were...
You set your own exam question.
Yes, and I think based on that as well, you had a few mischievous people who thought, then let's capitalize on this and say that the referendum is about the election of MMDCs, which clearly is not the case.
Right. And now, I mean, when you look at the Afrobarometer, they're saying that about 60% of Ghanaians are unaware of the referendum in itself.
I think the Afrobarometer report was, the survey was carried out between September 16th or so and October 3. Now, we kick-started the intensity of our education and awareness raising on September 17th by the kind sponsorship of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. But prior to that, we were engaging the citizenry on the district level elections and the referendum. But it intensified after that because we had received funds for that. So
some data from the Afrobarometer would have been collected and informed.
Yes, so in fact, we are even thinking that it is the education prior to that actually boosted it about that.
It could have been worse.
It could have been worse. So I'm sure that if another survey is carried out today, it would be a different picture altogether.
Right. Now, Doc, Yes or no? Yes or no? The campaigns are, vibrant, and to muddy the waters even more is this recent position taken by, the NDC, and of course, not too long ago, I believe just yesterday or so, a letter from the National House of Chiefs which went viral, and of course, the attendant issues coming after that too. We will definitely discuss it. But what do you make of these, if you like, last-minute posturing of certain interest groups or stakeholders?
Thank you very much. I want to believe that people from day one did not understand what was happening. There is a difference between district assembly elections and the selection of MLDCs. Right. District assembly elections had to do with how we get the people there to serve at the district assembly level. The MMDCs constitute one of the groups of people to be selected at the local government level. The election of MMDC is one aspect, like I said. That is governed by a different article. That is not in the hands of citizens. Amending that article is in the hands of Parliament. So at the moment, it is with Parliament to deal with it. Having amended that article, the question then is, how do we then move forward towards electing them? Are we going to elect them on partisan or non-partisan basis? That is where the citizens comes in. And that is what the referendum is all about. But initially, I think people had the impression that the referendum was to elect MMDCs. Having got the understanding and the clarity now, people are taking positions. It is good for people to take positions. Democracy is all about discussions. But what all of us need to do is to explain the issues to people, to allow them to make informed decisions. When you look at the Constitution Review Commission's recommendations, the first recommendation on the mode of district assembly elections, they recommended that Article 248 of the Constitution be amended to empower Parliament at any time in future to make provision for partisan elections at the district and sub-district levels. The white paper issued by the government rejected that position. And let me quote from page 33 of the white paper. It is saying that government does not accept the recommendation that Article 248 of the Constitution be amended to empower Parliament at any time in future to make provision for partisan elections at the district and sub-district levels. Government is of the view that the argument advanced by the Commission for non-partisan local government system far outweigh, this is government speaking, outweigh the arguments in favor of the partisan local government system. Government therefore intends that Article 248 in its present form must be retained. This is what government said about the district assembly elections. Now, on the election of MMDCs, the commission recommended that chief executives must be elected in metropolitan and municipal metropolitan assemblies. And this is what government said. Government does not accept the recommendation that Parliament should be empowered to determine specific mechanisms for choosing MMDCs. Government does not also accept the recommendation that in metropolis, chief executives should be popularly elected. The long and short of it is that they are saying government thinks that Article 2431 should be amended for the president to nominate a minimum of 5 persons who will be vetted by the Public Services Commission for competence, after which 3 nominees would contest in the public election. My point is that it is decision-making time. Do we allow political parties to take part in local level elections or not? Citizens must vote on it. But the arguments that are coming suggest that people are taking positions. And I'm not surprised about the position taken by the National House of Chiefs. Why am I saying that? Article 276 bars chiefs from actively participating in politics. So anything that's sought to introduce political party participation in local level elections, that would exclude them from putting themselves up. Naturally and reasonably, they may go against it. So for me, the statement does not change anything. I need the ordinary Ghanaian to be very discerning. Look at what is happening in Ghana. Look at how they want our democracy to be, to take their decision.
Right, but on the National House of Chiefs position, in fact, I did listen to an interview by one of the chiefs who raises issue with the process of even issuing that statement, and which has the effect of impugning that statement actually. So to the extent that, well, we could not even perhaps rely on that as coming from the National House of Chiefs. Well, that is something that ought to be resolved, at their level. But let's look at Article 2482.
That's right.
Which is what the Constitutional Review Commission had recommended for amendment subsequently or at a later time by Parliament. It has the same effect as Article 55.3.
That's right.
And Article 55.3 is what is currently going to be the subject of the referendum. Now, there are those who are saying that if you get people to vote in respect of 55.3 and 248 is not dealt with, you probably would still have an inconsistent situation in the Constitution, which is that, 2482 would prohibit, and then you have 55.3 or the amendment of 55.3 allowing. So you would have an unwieldy situation to deal with. So question is, why don't we have Article 2482 before Parliament, just as we have 2431?
Okay, I think I've heard that argument too. But the Ministry of Local Government developed a roadmap. The roadmap supporting the entire process. The roadmap has identified a number of consequential amendments. The 55.3 is the most difficult one because once it goes into the hands of citizens, you need citizens to approve or reject it. Once they reject it, then you don't come back to 248. But if they approve it, then as part of the consequential amendment, you take 248 on board. And it is not only 248. If you permit me, when they are on page 8,
243.
Yes, on page 8 of the referendum, the Ministry of Local Government referendum, they have outlined a number of consequential amendments, which in February 2020 they would initiate, subject to how the referendum goes. And the first one is Article 248. That amendment bill for Article 248 and the Local Government Act should be sent to Parliament for approval. But that will depend on how the amendment to Article 55.3 will go.
But Doc, sorry to cut you, but to the extent that we have 2431 before Parliament.
That's right.
Why didn't we go with 2482 as well to deal with it at a go? Because in terms of sequence, some have argued that 55.3 being the most difficult, like you said, then perhaps we should have subjected that to the referendum first. And depending on the outcome, we now come to 2431 and then those other consequential amendments. But here's the case that we've started with one consequential, well, should I even say it's a consequential amendment? It's not, because we haven't yet done exactly. So for now, it's the main. We've started with that, and then we'll go back to the most difficult. And then depending on how the most difficult goes, we'll go back to another consequential. So it's a bit unwieldy.
Yeah, no, it's not. That is, you see, when you look at it from that point, then you are trying to say that the two are the same, the two issues are the same. But we're dealing with two different issues. Election of MMDCs is different from introduction of partisan politics in local level elections. 2431 is in Parliament because of election of MMDCs. In fact, we can go through 55.3 without even, in fact, once 243 is passed, whether 55.3 goes yes or no, chief executives will be elected.
Yes, but not on partisan
basis. So the 243 went to Parliament because of election of MMDCs, which is the consequential amendment to 248.
Okay, let me go to Martin Kwebu here for your take on the sequence of things and what you make of it.
Oh, actually, 28th of April, right here, I told you right away that, look, once majority of the citizens whom the Constitutional Review Commission consulted indicated that they want the elections at the District Assembly and also the appointment of the MMDCs and all that should remain non-partisan. I want to go with it.
But you see, Senior, the word there was substantial, not majority.
No, they said majority.
It says 49, paragraph 49
Yes.
at page 470.
Yes.
Submissions received. It says the commission received substantial submissions that argued for the retention of the non-partisan nature of the district assembly elections. And then when you go to paragraph 50, it says there was also a large number of persons.
Yes.
So, as whether or not the word was majority really wasn't majority. So it's like two competing sides.
Look at 47. No, but wait. Let's look at 47. 47 says that a majority of Ghanaians called for the retention of the non-partisan character of those elections. Paragraph 47. It says majority. Majority is very clear. So they just say that
an equally large number.
Yes,
it goes on an equally large.
Yes, I'm not by you and I.
The majority.
Okay. In interpretation, when you say majority, there's no ambiguity. It means that
equally.
Clear cut.
No, but equal is not the same as majority. It says majority of the this respondents said that the elections and everything should be non-partisan.
Right.
So that was case closed. And you know, we spent so much money on the Constitutional Review Commission's work. They went around the country. Phone lines were open. I remember doing the phone line voting text message. You vote one question, then they go next. So we spend so much money. Why do we come back and say let's go again to do a referendum on the same questions? Ghanaians have already voted that look, this assembly arrangement should be on non-partisan basis. Case closed. Let's not reinvent the.
What do you say to Doc's response that there was a white paper?
But Martin, you see, case is not closed. Case is not closed because citizens expressed their views. The commission made different recommendations from what the citizens said. The white paper also made a different acceptance. So the question then is, which of the documents are we using?
We'll go citizens are sovereign.
We go with citizens.
We said we want non-partisan.
But by the constitution, we should go with the white paper.
Oh, no,
that's the problem. You see, that's why we should go back to the citizens and ask them.
No. It will be a waste of time. Look, this referendum will be a waste of time and resources. Look, I think that Mr. President should listen. He's shown that he's a very listening president. Okay, citizens have shown that, and especially with the NDC and the National House of Chiefs joining our no campaign vote. Yes. Mr. President should listen. Let's call off the referendum. Let's just go at 243 that look, this the Parliament should amend Article 243 to say that Chief Executive. That's all. Let's just be simple.
Now that you bring in the president, let's listen to him as he was urging people to vote yes. So let's listen to the president.
For the yes vote on the 17th of December. And we want to take Ghana one step forward. We're making progress with our democracy on many fronts. This is one of the last remaining barriers that we have to overcome. Support the initiative that the government has taken to bring greater and greater control over local government to the people in the area. No longer do you have to complain. How come the president has brought us this man we don't like, or this man we don't know? Now you can choose for yourself directly the man or woman you want as your district chief executive.
Okay, so again, after listening to the president urging people to vote yes, let's go back to the CRC report. Yeah. Just to understand their thinking of the two positions, retention of the non-partisan as against, switching to. So it says here, paragraph 49, that the commission received substantial submissions that argued for the retention of the non-partisan nature of DA elections. They provided the following reasons in support of their position. And I just want us to go through it to see if really...
When you finish, you read the recommendation of the commission.
Definitely.
And then you look at the white paper.
That's their recommendation.
So, nobody like the white paper, you see, that's the problem.
Exactly. The reasoning for those saying let's retain the non-partisan position is that the non-partisan nature of local level elections enabled the local government units to build effective partnerships with civil society organizations, to deepen democracy and accelerate district level development. It says this is because CSOs are also expected to operate in a non-partisan manner. Then B, politics in Ghana is very ethnocentric. Non-partisan elections ensured that districts which are multi-ethnic are able to unite around one object of making social progress rather than be divided along party and hence ethnic lines. And then thirdly, the non-partisan character of the elections facilitated the mobilization of the people, creates an environment that is conducive for public consensus, and removes the acrimony associated with partisan elections. These factors are crucial to the development efforts at the grassroots level, only which can lift our communities out of the quagmire of poverty in the midst of plenty. It looks like this C is the main thrust of persons pushing for the no. We need to take a break. When we come back, we will get into the minds of those who are saying, let's have a non-partisan character. And then we'll go and look at the white paper and try to understand exactly what it is we're looking at here. This is the key point. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back.
Like Ghana economy. Bema Humbe praise and another ministers.
Yada Productions and Fidelity mobile app in collaboration with the National Theatre present a play titled Red Light.
Yes. The driver crossed the red light and hit her. Is that where we can get a bed for her?
It's not bad though. Doc, emergency.
Yes.
Emergency.
Emergency. She was knocked down by a car.
Yes. Whoa. So is it a hit and run or a run and hit? Just so. Why? Just so. Auntie, Jemu never show. Why?
Date 16th November 2019 at the National Theatre. Time 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Tickets cost 60 cedis single, 100 cedis double. Ticket outlets: Airport Shell, Batuna Total, Frankie's Osu, or call 0268 112 005. Main sponsors: Fidelity mobile app, Loyalty Insurance, Sunny Gold Gary Mix, and Magic Cooker.
A to Z Auto Servicing Limited.
Other sponsors:
Christmas again, a time to be jolly. I do.
Christmas at Electroland is 3 times fun, 3 times amazing, and 3 times better. With the power of 3 of your favorite brands, Samsung, Media, and NASCO, we present to you the Electroland Triple Bronya Treat promotion. We bring you all the electronics you need at great discounts, and not only that, we're adding gifts like gas cookers, rice cookers, phones, irons, and many more. The only place to be this Christmas is at Electroland. Visit any of our shops nationwide for your own Triple Bronya treat. Merry Christmas from Electroland.
Merry Christmas from Electroland.
From across our great nation, Frytol is searching to unearth talents. Watch as our contestants cook with Frytol's amazing range of products. Cooking skills at its best. The prize, a life-changing business investment of 100,000 Ghana cedis, courtesy of Frytol Wilma Africa. Who will be the first ever Frytol Enriching Lives cooking champion? November 16th on TV3, watch the biggest reality cooking show at 6 p.m. every Saturday. Brought to you by Frytol. Frytol, enriching lives, unearthing talent, fulfilling dreams.
Vote yellow for the yes vote on the 17th of December.
Anymore. Well, welcome back. Well, we are looking at the upcoming national referendum, which is going to ask the question around Article 55.3, whether we as a people would want to have political parties sponsor candidates at the local level elections. And that's what we are currently discussing. So before the break, I read from the Constitution Review Commission report the reasoning behind those people who were advocating the retention of the non-partisan nature of district assembly elections. There were 3 of them. I'm now going to turn to the arguments for those advocating the review of the non-partisan character, which is to make it partisan now with the involvement of political parties. So paragraph 50 of the report reads that there was also a large number of persons that called for a review of the non-partisan character of district level elections. They backed their position with the following reasons. A, the implementation of decentralization by devolution would be impracticable if political parties are not allowed to participate actively in elections at the district level. Since the main objective of political parties is winning political power, the decentralization of power must involve political parties at the level where real power is located. B, the introduction of partisan politics at the district level would ensure that political parties that lose national elections can still maintain control of some districts and stay relevant to the business of governing the nation and extract benefits for their followers. This partisan presence can ultimately ameliorate in a sovereign way the polarization caused by the monopoly of a ruling party over both the central and local government structures in a winner-takes-all system. And C, partisan local government elections would allow district assemblies to be used as training grounds for national-level party politics. D, there is no compelling reason for barring political parties from taking part in elections at the district level. The restriction stems from the fact that the current system of decentralization was introduced at a time that political parties had been banned in Ghana. The system was then replicated in the constitution without much debate. And the last two says, one is that in practice, political parties clandestinely sponsored candidates for district level elections. It's time to allow the law to conform to the practice. And lastly, local government elections are used to gauge the midterm performance of incumbent governments. And the best way to do this is to allow the district level elections to be run along partisan lines. Madam, what do you make of these arguments for and against?
Well, it is an expression of people's views in terms of whether we want to see multi-party democracy at the district level.
Right.
And of course, this really addresses, this is what the referendum seeks to address. Yeah. So it is for Ghanaians now, based on these reasons, this becomes the information you need to make up your mind whether, in your view, you think that we'd like to see multi-party participation at the local governance level or not. It's, for me, it's simple. But I'd like you to read the recommendations of the CRC based on this and see if those recommendations in themselves responded to, you know, the questions, the findings that were made.
Really, so there's just one here for this particular, you know, question. It says, recommendation for constitutional change, that's at paragraph 65. It says the Commission recommends the amendment of Article 248 to empower Parliament at any time in the future to make provision for partisan elections at the district and sub-district levels. So there you go.
So does it respond, does it address the many needs or the many findings that were expressed there? So that in itself becomes one of the issues that must be addressed. And then it is further compounded by the white paper. And as Dr. Odro has indicated, the white paper now becomes almost, it takes on almost the force of some law. I mean, I'm using this not in the strict sense of the word, but for us to say the white paper overrides the recommendations here. And the white paper in itself rejected this. So the question is, did it address the needs of the people? And that is why we've come back to a referendum today. That is why we are now asking again, how do we want to see this go? We elect our unit committee members, we elect our assembly members. Now, if 243 goes through, it means we'll be electing our MMDCs. Question, after we've elected, we've agreed to elect our MMDCs, these three categories of duty bearers, how do we want the election to go? It's brought us back to the same question that was asked in 2011, and the same issues arising from that Constitutional Review Commission that is still sitting on the books, and nothing, no real constitutional reform has been done. So we're at
square one.
Square one.
But we need to get out of
all the money spent, all the time, the views of experts, the sovereign will of Ghanaians, all of that has stalled again.
Right.
And this referendum must go on to address this issue once and for all.
Right. Doc.
Yeah, I think my sister has said it all. Ghanaians were asked whether they wanted partisan or non-partisan. They gave various advantages and disadvantages. And the commission itself was of the view that the advantages of non-partisan outweighs the disadvantages. But interestingly, they recommended that in future, Parliament should make laws so that the local government system can be made partisan.
Right.
And the white paper also rejected that particular recommendation.
And Doc, sorry, just to add, in doing so, they didn't address 55.3.
55.3 was not in there. Yep. You know, so the government white paper also rejected the recommendation of the commission that Parliament can make a law to make local government system partisan. And that is the more reason why the government is saying, let's come back to the citizens. Because at the moment, government cannot go and implement the CRC, sorry, the white paper on the CRC. Because the white paper on the CRC has on its own rejected the recommendation of the commission. Sure. You know, so government is saying, I'm coming back to you, repeat what you told the Constitutional Review Commission again to us, so that once you affirm a yes or a no, we go by that. Let me also mention that whether a yes or a no, once 2431, which is currently in Parliament, is amended, chief executives will be elected. But a yes or no means the process of electing the duty bearers, the three of them, assembly members, chief executive, and unit committees, would either be partisan or non-partisan. In any case, if somebody want to play politics with it, the NPP promised they were going to elect chief executive within 24 months in office. So if they really want to elect only chief executives, then amending 2431 would have been the deal. Then they would have achieved their objective. But I am of the view that going forward, we should re-examine the constitutional provision that gives the president the power to issue white papers on commission's report. Because that is where the challenge is.
That question should be put to a referendum as well. So we decide what to do with it.
In any case, it's part of the executive chapter. And the entire executive chapter is entrenched. So it is also a referendum question.
White paper is in 280. Publishing
is it not
white paper.
Is it not part of the executive?
280. Right. It appears it's not entrenched. So Parliament can.
Then that's good for me.
Yes. So it means that this white paper is giving us headache.
It is the white paper that has created all the problems. Yeah. Well, if the white paper had accepted, the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Commission, we would have moved on. Right. But now the government is at a point of decision making. And since the white paper rejected the majority views of Ghanaians, it didn't let me come back to Ghanaians again for them to express their views.
So what we can ask Mr. President to do is that, no, he should just restore the sovereign will of the people, which is that, look, the people said, majority said they want the elections to remain non-partisan. So he will just review the white paper. That's it.
What is the constitutional basis?
It's a government is a continuum. You find that your predecessor made a certain white paper.
A succeeding government is not bound by
exactly. So you just restore that. Look, I hereby review the white paper. I'm restoring the wishes of the sovereign people of Ghana that they want the elections to remain non-partisan. Please, and that would be great. And we want the president for it.
Then we need to review the entire white paper.
Yes, exactly. But what we haven't said so far is, you see, you remember the monetization of our elections. It's such a huge problem, the corruption and everything. So please, we've learned enough from it. Please, let's keep that out of the local governance system. Let's keep this monetization and the corruption and all that in the electoral process out of the local governance system. Let's continue experimenting at the national level, the partisan elections at the national level. When we perfect it, in future we can come back to this and say, oh, let's introduce it at the local governance level. But for now, we are not ready.
Right. Now, in response to that, I have two questions. One is that, you know, one of the reasoning behind the retention the review of what it pertains currently, which is let's switch to partisan, is that really and truly the reason why we have the provision as it is now is because at the time multi-party democracy was not in existence or was
For
banned.
political parties,
Not
Sorry,
necessarily.
political parties. That's what it says here. And so then there wouldn't have been the anticipation of having political parties participate at that level.
Those who made the argument, those who made the argument have not referred to our history. Remember that the CRC is saying that these are the arguments of those saying let's make it partisan. Remember, the CRC hasn't said it agrees.
Sure.
Those who made the argument
was a flawed one.
Sorry,
was a flawed argument.
Exactly, very flawed, because this is not the first time. Local governance didn't start in Ghana in 1988. No.
And in any case, the 1992 referendum was for the reintroduction of political parties.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
So for good
exactly.
reason.
So local government, we had it in the First Republic, district councils, urban councils, and all that. We had it in the First Republic. We had it in the Second. So those who say that the argument was influenced by the fact that we didn't have multi-party democracy in Ghana, I think they are totally flawed.
Right. Sure. Yes, madam. You wanted to say something?
Well,
or you wanted me to make reference to something? If you could just say so, I'll pull that up. But whilst I look for that which you want me to read, the question then is this. I mean, the no vote. If the no vote should succeed, that would send a strong message to.
Yes.
Maybe political parties, but not just political parties, but to us as a people, that this is really a rejection of how we've done our politics.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be the message?
I think it will be that will be the message, and it will also clearly indicate to political parties that they need to set up and regain that confidence and trust Ghanaians need in them to move this country forward. As it is now, we all know that when you go to the district assemblies, it is the way assembly members are elected. The political parties clandestinely do their own primaries. So you already find that intrusion of partisan politics there, even though the law, the constitution clearly prohibits that. So you see political parties acting with impunity as it is already. So for me, my take on this is this. We have a roadmap. If we decide to go yes, the roadmap and the review of our national policy must put in clear mechanisms that ensure that those negatives of partisanship that we see at all levels is not further entrenched. How do you insulate our assemblies against this kind of negative partisanship? If we go no, then this clearly established clandestine activity going on by political parties, how do you sanitize the system so that we as a people now understand that political parties have no business in local governance? If they have no business in local governance, we must have rules and regulations that ensure they are properly and
kept out.
Yes, kept out, and they are punished if they participate in it. At the end of the day, they are all citizens. And if the Constitution bars them currently and they're doing it, why do we allow it for that to happen without punishing them for it? So this is what we would like to see.
Isn't it interesting that, I mean, during all these debates and discourse, you see the political parties confidently say it, actually, that, well, we're doing it nonetheless. So
just briefly. You know the way 248 prohibits this partisan participation.
You know what, Senior, please, let's hold on to that. We need to take a break. When we come back, we will continue. I'll come to you for you to make this up. Please don't lose your train of thoughts because we need that very soon. So this is the key points. Please stay and stay with us. We'll be back to continue with our discussion on the upcoming nationwide referendum on the 17th of December 2019. See you shortly.
Democracy, freedom, and independence of the media in Ghana. 70 years of Ghana Journalists Association. The GJA's contribution themes the 24th edition of the prestigious GJA Awards. Join the Platinum Anniversary edition of the GJA Awards on Saturday, 23rd November at Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel, 6 p.m. Powered by the Ghana Journalists Association and Globe Productions. Strictly by invitation.
Eya woti ya wo be mem ana eya imo hyehyew wo sensu fitaa bi firi mu ba wugu nso ntentem ana ya wugu nso a na emu ache woti ya wo sabi wa ya ase esese wo bobrim se bi ana wo prostate ana hu aba ha wo eya na onsa na ase wo na ya yetitiri waposo tutu wonante a na wa yedududu eya se bibi ne na mo widie mu ebia na stroke yade na ebo wonkaye Endpoint homeopathic clinic ewo nimdi ode beboa wo Endpoint Ewa Crass Pinterest Road Shell Signboard Tema Committee 22 Koa Naso Hotel Echi Kumasi Kronoma Buenya Angel School Complex Sakra de Endpoint Ewa Anaji Queen of Peace inside Anaji Police Station Echi Pe Techimine Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic Ewo Hensa Eni Jos Bro Filling Station Ene Di Hwanimu For Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic Ewo 0244 867-068.
Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Oh, you need to be prepared.
Ma, I'm for phoning your quick call and sawako.
Hey, it would also put a sound network way. I'm more credit in the data fiano. Oh, Nick Shin, you don't know what so. What is a Vodafone? A double red 1, red 2, and red 5 offers. Yeah, double into swap up a bit. Na 5 cities any day. Jai. Uber Casa 250 minutes. Na data no. And also 250 megabytes. I na benya way. I guess a hanko.
Hey, mommy. And the side me finish a corner quick na call.
Hey, Apostle. Ube Jane. And yes, sir. Ube Bressa.
Switch to Vodafone and enjoy double into swap on red bundles of 1, 2, and 5 CDs. Enjoy double talk minutes to call all networks and double data to browse. Vodafone always gives you more. Terms and conditions apply.
Vodafone double into swap the
Now, future is exciting. Ready?
It's time to recognize and celebrate businesses making strides in Ghana. It's the 3rd Chamber Business Awards on the theme Digitizing the Ghanaian Economy for Competitive Edge in a Globalized Market. Date 23rd November 2019. Venue Accra International Conference Center. Time is 6 p.m. prompt. Join us at the 3rd Chamber Business Awards as we celebrate successful businesses, applaud great leadership, and honor achievements. Our special guest of honor is His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. Nana Dr. Apieje Dankalso I, President of GNCCI, and the entire chamber looks forward to your presence at the 3rd Chamber Business Awards. Who walks away with the top award?
From across our great nation, Frytol is searching to unearth talents. Watch as our contestants cook with Frytol's amazing range of products. Cooking skills at its best. The prize, a life-changing business investment of 100,000 Ghana cedis, courtesy of Frytol Wilma Africa. Who will be the first ever Frytol Enriching Lives Cooking Champion? November 16th on TV3, watch the biggest reality cooking show at 6 p.m. every Saturday. Brought to you by Frytol. Frytol Enriching Lives. Unearthing talent, fulfilling dreams.
This Saturday on Today's Woman.
You know, you encourage women a lot. Yes, you always uplift women. You always talk about the worth of a woman. What would you say is the influence of a woman?
You know, women are amazing creatures, and we have great influence. A woman has influence over her husband, her father, her brother, her son. Women are very influential, and you know, women by our nature are nurturers. We are carers, we are helpers, we are destiny carriers. You take the seed, you bring forth a child. Right. We have that inner, you know, love and emotional strength to nurture. So women are very influential.
Watch Today's Woman every Saturday at 11 a.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by GTP.
Ya Sanitary Pad from Lexta Ghana Limited.
Welcome back. This is still the Key Points live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page at TV3 Ghana. So we're still looking at the December 17, 2019 referendum, the issues around it, and how best the country could be, advanced or developed by reason of which votes, we end up having at the end of the referendum. Just before the break, Mr. People was speaking to the issue about how, openly politicians are stating that indeed, despite the constitutional ban, political parties are actively involved in the local level elections, and I thought that in itself smacks of impunity, and it's something that should not be countenanced.
Yes, exactly. So the point I was trying to develop is that those doing it, they should be careful. Ghana, it won't be long, somebody will be suing the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's just better that now that we are discussing the Supreme Court can make consequential orders, and that can be very dire. So I call upon all those who have been clandestinely doing and also openly, flagrantly doing party politics in that. Yes, they should refrain. Right. They should refrain from that.
Let me help here. Under Section 27 of the Political Parties Act, in fact, if a political party is contravenes the Political Parties Act, which includes participating in local level elections, they can even revoke your license. And then, if you are not very careful, you the candidate, you can be fined as well in jail.
That is what we want to see.
So what we need to do is we should see more enforcement of our law. The laws are there. The laws are there.
As they always are. The issue has to do with
implementation.
They are going to implement. The middle class offset. Madam was talking about the growing middle class. The way they are getting disenchanted with the chicanery of our politicians and all this. Look, Ghana is changing rapidly, so we should watch out. The political class has to be very vigilant. They should turn over a new leaf.
Okay, so now this other issue. I mean, definitely, all three of you could speak to it. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons why some people have called for the involvement of political parties at the local levels is that, the level of civic involvement is low, relatively low. Turnouts, terrible, and all of that. So they were arguing, or some people who have advocated, the involvement of partisan politics there, is that political parties, by their nature, can mobilize people, and in that mobilization, they will get more people to participate, and so let's bring them in. If our argument is that no, given the acrimony at the national level or the central level, we don't want to see that replicated down there, we still haven't dealt with the issue about how to increase or participation. Question then is, how do we get that? Because ultimately, that is what the essence of decentralization is about, having people. So let me throw it to the ladies first.
I think the essence of decentralization in our assemblies is development. And at the very core of development is the participation of all of us. Perhaps that has contributed to the developmental deficits we see in this country. And it's important for us to step up engagements of the citizenry to participate in district level governance. Because that is where I keep saying that is the essence of our comfort, the essence of our daily living, and everything that occurs there affects all of us collectively. So we have to perhaps begin to focus more on the benefits of decentralization, whether it's partisan or otherwise. At the end of the day, it takes people to develop. So we have to step up our engagement, and people begin to appreciate. I say that our district level elections are even more important than our general elections. I ask people, when was the last time you saw an MP coming to your doorstep, or the president coming to your village? But your assemblyman, your unit committee member, your DC, he's with you every day. And you should be concerned about what he is doing there. And in fact, our Local Governance Act gives us so much access to these people, so much access in actually observing what is going on, demanding accountability. And when we wake up to those rights that we have to access, to participation at the local government level, we would see the kind of development we want. And then people will begin to appreciate that this is where I should be looking at. Because the road I drive on, the kind of water that comes through my at the local
level. So definitely they wield that level of power, and they can do things if they really want to do it. If people are involved there, accountability increases, and obviously we get development as we want. But Doc, how do we get civic participation in there enhanced?
A lot of work for NCC.
Yes.
The work of NCC.
You're going to talk about budgetary allocation.
We may have to resource the
talk about it
NCC in the more, so they'll be able to undertake and deepen civic education, so they can have more district offices with logistics, so they can do that. And then also, in the Local Governance Act, we have a whole chapter on participation of citizens. I know in certain cases, unless you sensitize and educate people, they may not even understand the rights they have under the law. But now we have a Right to Information Act passed. How have we decentralized it? How have we sensitized people to appreciate and understand their role under all of that? For instance, people do not even know that they can recall the assembly member if the assembly member is not performing. People do not know that the assembly would have to consult them before they finalize their development plans. People do not even know that if the assembly finalizes their development plans and the development plan does not make provision for their electoral area, they have every right to challenge that particular development plan. So all these things requires education. And the recognized constitutional body is the NCCE. That institution is under-resourced. So I'm calling for a resourcing of the NCCE, both financially and logistically, so they'll be able to deepen civic education, so that at least citizens will be able to understand and appreciate their rights and participate effectively in local government.
Doc, I thank you. I wasn't going to sound like a broken record, but I have people like Doc advocating for me.
Yes.
Yes,
so
excellent.
Definitely, we'll keep that advocacy going.
Yes, so in law we say that I have nothing useful to add. They too have put it well, but maybe I should just add a very brief comment. I think that the middle class, those who drive to work in their AC, say no, I don't want anything to do with politics, I think they are the people who should watch out. There are people who should watch out, because look, whether they like it or not, politics will affect them, the water they drink, the air, everything. So it's about time they sat up and got involved. By saying they should get involved, we are not asking them to be partisan. No, we are not asking them to be partisan. You can be political without being partisan. As we sit here, we are being political, but we are not being partisan, you see. So the middle class should sit up. They should sit up, okay? Then we can all help to make a very good country.
Very well. Let me take some messages and then return to the panelists for their concluding remarks on this. This one is Paul in Aflawa. It says, Dr. Osai in recent past decried increasing spate of impunity and indiscipline in Ghana caused by political parties. Today, Dr. Osai is telling us that Ghanaians should let political parties take charge of the unit committee and assembly elections in our election areas. To what end? What is Dr. Osai's motivation? He wants more impunity and indiscipline in Ghana. That's a question there. I am there. This one says, I have served as elected assembly member in my village with 20 unit committee members from different political, religious and social divides. It will be impossible for some of the people who served under me as unit committee members to win a unit committee member election on their political party tickets. I'm therefore voting a big no. That's coming from former assembly member Duta electoral area. Good morning, Abner. Please let's vote a big no to reduce the political tension we have engraved on ourselves in this country. Makumba in Wa says, Abna, I will entreat every Ghanaian of voting age to go for a very big no for this impending referendum, because we don't want our local election to be highly politicized as the national one. For example, we don't want to experience a highly tense political year, highly monetized electoral system, monopolized two political party system, etc. We can elect our local members without political party participation. That's Makumba in Wa. So clearly, I mean, I'm sure if people had the opportunity, they would also say no to multi-party democracy at the national level. But hey, this is what we have, so we are moving on. But in conclusion, let's look at the hurdles that government would even need to jump in terms of having the voter turnout of a certain percentage, and then that voter turnout, about 75% voting yes if government wants, the change to happen. So we have firstly to get people out there to vote, and that I think you can touch on that as we conclude on here.
Okay, I think the NCCE, the Information Services Department, and the Ministry of Local Government are on the field campaigning, educating people so they will be able to understand the issues. But the Constitution requires that we need 40% turnout, and then 75% of the 40% must vote in favor of the bill to amend Article 55.3. So that is where we are now. So the most important thing is people must come out in their midst and express their view. This is a civic duty. This is a civic responsibility. We would have to deliver it. Because in times past, we've never gone past 45% by way of voter turnout when it comes to local level elections. Let us make history by this time around, coming out in our numbers to vote.
The regional organization had what percentage turnout?
That is not nationwide.
That wasn't nationwide.
It wasn't nationwide.
That wasn't nationwide. Right.
It was organized in selected areas.
Sure.
And that one has the unanimity of all the people. They actually petitioned for it.
Very well.
Some people didn't
so
petition
we have
though.
2 minutes to go. I'll split that.
Some people didn't petition the Commission of the Regions.
Your concluding remarks.
I think my concluding remarks, I would like to reiterate on the clarification, so that Ghanaians understand that as you go to the polls December 17th, you're voting your unit committee members, you're voting your assembly members, and you're voting yes or no in relation to whether you want multi-party participation at the local governance level. And to understand that voting yes means that you want political parties to participate in district level governance. Voting no means you reject the proposed amendment and you would not like to see multi-party participation at the local governance level. So the status quo remains. Anything to do with the election of MMDCs is clearly in the domain of Parliament, and Parliament is in the process of amending that. So the election of MMDCs, once it's amended in Parliament, we would be able to elect our MMDCs. Now the question at the referendum, how do you want to see this election? Either you want to see it on a partisan basis or a non-partisan basis. So we ask and urge all people, I add my voice to my brother.
That look, let's put a stop to the referendum. Yes, my humble plea is that let's put a stop to the referendum. Ghanaians were given the opportunity to vote when the CRC was doing its work, and they expressed their clear opinion that they want elections at the local level to be non-partisan. So we don't need another referendum on this matter. You say, let's spend our resources in a better manner. We can use the money for these elections, okay, on roads, hospitals, schools under trees. Okay, we have more pressing needs. So that the easier thing is for the president to review the white paper and say, look, I would go with the sovereign will of the people earlier on expressed during the CRC sittings, where majority of the people said elections at the local level should be non-partisan. So let's only do amendment of Article 243 for the election
which
of
is before
DCs.
Parliament currently.
Excellent.
Very well. So that's Martin Pebu's advice to government. But if that doesn't happen, then the advice given by Dr. Oduosai and Madam Josephine Nkrumah is for you to go out in your numbers, go express your opinions, your preference, and let your voice be heard in respect of this very important question of participation of political parties at the local level elections. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've had in the studio Mr. Martin Pebu, a private legal practitioner, Madam Josephine Nkrumah, she's a chairperson of the NCCE, and Dr. Eric Oduosai, Dean of Studies and Research Institute of Local Government Studies. Thank you so much, and thank you to our viewers and listeners for making a date with us. We'll be back here same time next week. Until then, have yourself a very, very good weekend and a productive week. Bye-bye.